Okay, welcome everyone. November 11th, Town of Basalt. Pam, will you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Let me grab my list here if I can get Doug out of the way. Okay, let's begin with Angela Anderson.
I'm here.
Rick Stevens.
Here.
Hannah Berman.
Here.
Angel Dupré-Bouchard.
Here.
Ryan Slack.
Here.
David Knight is out and about tonight. And Dieter Schindler.
I am here.
Thank you. 6 out of 7. Thank you.
Still the 18. Let's go.
Still the 18. Oh,
Make it
still
happen.
all the aces in their places.
Aces in their places.
Okay, first thing on the agenda is the consent agenda. It's the minutes from October 14th, as well as to approve a special event activity permit for Al Cezanne de mi Tierra food truck.
Mayor Pro Tem, I move that the town council approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Roll call, or just voice vote?
Voice vote.
Voice vote.
Voice, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, on to public comment. Just a reminder, please limit your comments to 3 minutes and address your comments directly to the mayor, myself. Identify yourself by name and address when making comments. Comments should be courteous, civil, and constructive. And town council will not make any decision nor take action except to direct the town manager. Oh, here's our first public comment.
Hi all, good evening. So Chris Matera, President CEO, Basalt Chamber of Commerce. I just wanted to announce to Town Council as well as anyone listening at home, or let people know that tomorrow night we're doing an open house. It's a community open house on tourism with the Colorado Tourism Office. We are working on our first ever tourism strategic plan, and we need input from everyone in the community, and we know Basaltians really like to get their input out there. So we really want it. We also have a resident sentiment survey. This will be our third that we've done in the 8 years that I've been in this role. Our last one was in 2021, and really interested to see how that compares to kind of the early post-COVID years to now. And then for people who are in the tourism industry, we also have a tourism stakeholder survey. The workshop, or the open house will be tomorrow night, and then we're going to do a smaller workshop with key stakeholders on Thursday morning. And we look forward to reporting back everything we've learned from the surveys and all of this data that we're starting to collect right now. So please, both for council, staff, people listening in who are residents, we want you to help to shape the future of tourism here in Basalt, and we want to hear your feedback. And please come to the Basalt Regional Library tomorrow between 5 and 7 p.m. It's an open house, so flow in and out as you would like. We're going to have a bunch of interactive activities. For those of you who have been to either a comp plan or a master plan event, it's going to be very similar to have those different components. So, and if you haven't taken the survey and you guys live here, please take that resident sentiment survey because we want a good response rate. Thank you.
Awesome, thank
Thank
you,
you.
Chris. Anyone else in the public that would like to make a comment? Anyone online that would like to make a comment? I think we're pretty good. Okay, moving on to mayor and council reports and comments. Anyone? If no one has anything, I would like to thank Justin and his team. They're doing a big project on Riverside Drive, and I saw Justin personally hanging door hangers to let people know what was going on. So I'd just like to say that I love to see Justin out and about all the time. I've probably almost run into him at least 3 times. So thank you guys for all you guys are doing. I know it's a lot of good work out there. And to Lieutenant Munch, nice to have you here. Thank you for you and your team for all you guys are doing. Still short-staffed. Anyone else? Anything?
Well, the public works guys timed the water off on Riverside Drive
Yeah.
exactly when I was replacing my mechanical equipment, so it worked
Oh.
out pretty well.
You didn't even have to shut off your valve.
Just off my water. They
You
came
have
right
to-
back on when we were done.
Perfect timing.
Consider it.
Yeah.
Thank you for working with Rick on that. That's amazing. Okay,
Customer service is off the charts.
on to interim manager's report. Doug?
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. Just a couple of quick things here.
One is at this Thursday at the Hoffman Hotel. There'll be another open house community meeting regarding the Willits Housing and Community Space Project. There was a meeting just for the Cypress Meadows residents last night that was pretty well attended, and there for a couple hours. So 5 to 7, Thursday at the Hoffman Hotel, if you're so inclined to attend. I'll be there with Michelle and team supporting the project. And then next Wednesday, the 19th, there is going to be a public input opportunity for the Midland Design Guidelines that we've been working on, GM Shea, along with, under the auspices of Carlton, been heading that project. So they'll be here at Town Hall from 6 to 7 next Wednesday, the 19th. So other than that, that's all I have. We're going to be hearing from Matt. I just want you to know that, with all the encounters that Matt's team has with recreation, pool, all of the programs, whether it be softball or it's a very eclectic number of programs that are run. I can count on one finger here how many complaints I've had from the town, and we've obviously received more than that. But with considering all the encounters, Matt has done a great job, so I want him to come present here to the council tonight more about how he's thinking about things and his whole plan for the future. So with that, I'm done with that.
We're gonna bring up Matt. I wanna just make one quick comment too. I'm pretty sure this is Doug's last meeting as temporary manager.
It is.
I wanna extend a thank you to Doug and the whole staff. I think everyone stepped up in this time of not having a true manager. Doug stepping in was huge. I appreciate all staff for sticking on plan, getting things done. I think our town is so blessed in this 8 years. I think this crew that we have assembled is amazing. I love working with all of you. It's a pleasure. I just can't thank you all enough. So,
Thank you.
thank you so much for everyone stepping up in the time of need. We really appreciate it.
I'm glad you did, but you stole my thunder. I was going to open by just saying.
Sorry. I just looked over and realized it was his last meeting as manager.
Yeah, I appreciated the kind words from Doug, and I was just going to reciprocate, just saying I think Doug's done a really great job stepping in and really doing like a seamless job, just stepping in and taking over and keeping us rolling. So thank you, Doug. I have a shameless bribe to start us off.
And I'm going to say this is 6A Recreation Department recap with.
Yeah, unfortunately I don't have larger sizes. We're all out of the adult sizes, although they might fit. But if there's a spouse or a child.
Why
My
don't
wife.
Yes.
Thanks for ads, huh?
These are
I have
awesome.
small
I'm
brains.
stoked. Bribe accepted.
Yeah. Oh, jeez.
That's good.
Scratch that from the.
Incredible. We a baseball team?
Yeah. We're
You
a
almost
team.
have enough. You need like a
baseball
couple more
team now.
players.
Yeah.
Well,
feel
thanks
like
for the
I'd be
opportunity to
picture of
be
everyone.
here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not the photographer. Thanks for the chance to be here. I just wanted to kind of give you guys an update on where our programs are, some growth that we've seen in our programming, and kind of goals, that I sit with every day, but also some ideas and things that I want to look at moving forward. So go ahead and go to the next slide. So kind of some overarching goals that I'm always kind of thinking about is just the accessibility of our program. So, do families and people know about the programs? Can they physically access them? Can they access them in terms of financially? Obviously that dovetails right into low cost. I think if you look up and down the valley or at other rec programming, you're going to find that our costs our fees, costs for people to sign up for our programming is really pretty reasonable and probably, frankly, on kind of the low end. And I like it that way. I think it's important that we have opportunities for people to engage in this type of programming that doesn't cost very much, and they can just come and enjoy it, and it doesn't kill them in the pocketbook. Something that I really appreciated about Ryan's leadership before he left was, he always emphasized with me that my role is about programs. I'm not a revenue generating arm of the town. Obviously, I have to, part of the job is generating revenue, but really the idea is that I'm delivering programming, and if I'm losing money on, X or Y program, as long as there's value to the community, then that's something that we feel pretty good about. Equity is a big thing for me, whether that looks like, diverse languages and ethnicities and populations engaging in our programs, but also things like, there might be that kid that wouldn't sign up for a super uber competitive tryout basketball team, but they come and play rec basketball and have a great time and learn the game and are exposed to it. So I think there's kind of multiple ways to look at equity within that. I want to provide opportunities for just exposure to sports or exposure to recreational opportunities and learning about those things. And then a big overarching goal is just to continue to work with our schools and daycares as particularly important parts of our community. I think of the John Dillinger quote where he was asked, why do you rob banks? And he said, well, that's where the money is. And why do I go to schools and daycares? Well, that's where the kids are. So, all right, let's keep moving. So I inherited a lot of programming when I started. I started in 22, and it was we were just coming out of COVID. And so I think, I guess that's some context that I think is important, because there was probably some programming that was happening before I came in that had gotten kind of dropped through COVID. And then, and there was quite a bit that was still kind of running even through COVID. So some programming that I kind of inherited that I've continued is baseball and softball leagues, as well as t-ball, basketball leagues, soccer for little kids, swim lessons, both public-facing lessons as well as lessons for local camps and daycares, and then our big nature school summer camp offerings, also known as Gary Camps. Can you keep going, James? Thank you. So I'm really proud of the growth that I've seen. And again, I think some of this growth could be a little bit attributed to that 22 year being particularly tricky with kind of just having come out of COVID. But again, I'm proud of a lot of the growth that we've seen in our program. So in 22, I had one baseball team in the whole program. And now this past year, we had 5 baseball teams across 3 age groups and 2 softball teams, which we last year was actually the first year we were able to even field a softball team. So, going from 10 kids to 82 kids in 4 years felt really good. Looking back on it. Similarly in basketball, we used to be more like at 2 teams at each level. We've grown that to about 3 teams at each level. It's currently girls basketball season. We've got a little over 60 girls participating across 3rd through 6th grades, which is really fun. I'm coaching, I talked my 3rd grade daughter into doing it, and it's really fun to coach her. And although I don't know if she thinks it's as fun as she thought it was going to be. Anyway. And this is another small example, like soccer for little kids. When I say littles, I'm thinking like K2 is what this program's for. I had 7 kids in my first post-COVID session, like right when I kind of came in, and we're now filling up 2 20-kid sessions pretty much every time. So that's been fun to see. And then again, I don't see. Revenue not as my most important thing, and it's something that I think is evidence of increased usage of our programs, because our costs, my fees have not gone up significantly over the 4 years that I've been here, but the revenue numbers have, and so, which is something I'm proud of. So I put those lesson revenue numbers just as kind of evidence around how much we've been able to grow our swim lesson programs, and then this Nature School Summer Camp, I think, is another cool one where back in 22, and that program had grown pretty significantly already. We filled 431 total camp slots in this past year because of expanding the number of slots that we're able to offer, offering additional 11 and 12-year-old programs and some new 13 and 14-year-old programs. We got that up to 640 slots filled this summer, it was a busy summer with our camps. Go ahead to the next one, thanks. And then I've been able to implement some new programming. Probably my single favorite program in the whole, in everything I do is my hiking club. I get to take 14 kids hiking and hang out with them and teach them outdoor skills, and it's just like, it's really, really fun. So that's been really great. I've started flag football. I've started a basketball mini camp for little kids. Our leagues start in 3rd grade, so I've been able to kind of fill that gap of K2 with some extra some basketball exposure at that level. We've added a wrestling program for 1st through 4th grade. And then I've been working with the schools and had some great educators approach me about starting a girls' math camp, which we started a couple summers ago. And then just this past year, we started the Green Thumb Club to kind of revitalize the garden that's at Basalt Elementary School, which was really successful. I go to BES a couple days a week. I haven't started that this school year yet, but I will start soon, where I just go and I support at recess, so that, you know, I'm providing, kind of trying to teach like sportsmanship and kind of work on some of those sports type skills, but also just being an extra adult on the playground, and then providing some structured play opportunities for them when I can. 2 programs I did inherit that kind of got dropped because I lost the instructors for them were tennis clinics and water aerobics, and I was able to restart those this summer, and those were really successful on our restart, and I see those continuing into the future. And then I've added some afternoon swim lessons, kind of going back to that equity thing. Our swim lessons traditionally had been really all in the mornings. That can be hard on families to be able to even access those, to be able to get their kid there. So I was able to find another swim instructor and provide some lesson opportunities in the afternoons and evenings, which I think was really great. Gotta show off my beautiful hiking club. It's like, how can I complain about work when like that's what I'm doing? Get to go hang out with kids and just like hike around. It's pretty cool. All right, so really quick with revenue again, I guess I want to emphasize that I put these numbers in more as evidence of kind of our increased usage of programs. That's the thing that I'm most pleased with over the course of these 4 years, but you can see, I don't need to read off the numbers to you, but you can see both pool revenue broken out as well as overall rec revenue. And everyone has grown every year. I do expect a little bit of a plateau to start happening. I don't expect that number to kind of keep exponentially rising because I'm feeling a little bit maxed out in terms of what I can offer. And I'm hoping to still continue to grow programs. So in terms of some, you can keep going, James, some challenges and opportunities. One challenge that I've always had and that I've shared with council, in the past is just finding program leaders beyond myself. I can only be in one place at one time. I try to lead as much programming as I can personally, but I also need program leaders to take on leading programs themselves. I do have some great program leaders, and I'm always looking for more. So that's just kind of a challenge, an ongoing challenge. And those leaders do get paid. We kind of we have like a revenue share system that we pay them out with. So it's like, so anyone listening now that's interested in knitting or some other cool thing that they want to bring to the community, I'm always interested in hearing from those people. Gym space is always a challenge. That's a challenge across the valley, not just in Basalt. So just having enough space having gym space to deliver programs or to have our basketball leagues. Pool repair and maintenance is an ongoing challenge. Having a pool is like owning a house. Things just break, and that's just kind of a constant that we're always dealing with. I'm wanting to try to provide a little bit more winter programming beyond basketball. That goes back to that gym space challenge. That's just something, it's like, where can I deliver that program from? I do want to continue to improve and refine our registration system. It's a little clunky, and that's something that I frankly haven't spent enough time probably kind of looking at myself so that I understand it better, so that I can kind of make it more accessible for our community. That's something I want to continue to look at. The Carbondale pool closure was kind of both a challenge and an opportunity. It was an opportunity for us because it brought a lot more people to our pool, which also could be viewed as a challenge because our pool was busier, but it also brought more revenue. But now next year, if they're reopening, then we're looking at probably some decreased revenues at the pool with less people coming. So just kind of a challenge and opportunity there of planning for those things. And then I did want to mention I think Gary, our summer camp kind of operator, is very happy. I think there's no plans for him to stop working with Basalt Rec. And if that were to ever happen, if something were to happen with those camps, just having a contingency plan for our summer camps, because a lot of families really rely on those camps for care over the summer and for really great opportunities for kids over the summer. I'm almost there. I think I'm probably getting close to my time limit. Apologies. I'm not known to be very succinct. So I'm trying. Some opportunities that I see are just continuing to increase our programmatic reach. I want to kind of have a renewed focus on adult population, specifically seniors. I was able to do like the water aerobics, which I see as a little bit more of a senior, facing program. And I do think that there's opportunity for more programming that's specifically for our senior populations that I haven't really tackled yet. I see 2E as a tremendous opportunity for our rec programs. I know we're in the very early stages of that, and that's something that would be coming online, years from now. And I see that as potentially hugely beneficial to Basalt recreation generally. And I want to continue to add and refine programs. I want to add more special events in at the pool. We have started the last few years like night swim a couple of times over the course of the summer, like 2 or 3 times. We always have our dog day at the very end of the year, but I think there's some opportunity just to have like more like rally around some specific event that's happening at the pool that brings people in. And then the last thing is just, I think that there's some opportunity with some more, I do some early release Wednesday related programming, but for those of you who have kids in the school district, you know about that structure, and that can be hard on families. And I do have some, like I said, like Hiking Club, for example, is during that early release Wednesday time, but I see some more opportunity there for just increased programming, hopefully with other leaders besides just me, so that we can really kind of make a dent in all that need of care for kids, from 2 to 5 or whatever, if their parents are still working, when they're getting off school early on those Wednesdays. So that's really what I have. I know I kind of ran through it all quick. I hope it kind of gave you a picture of my world and what we try to do, and kind of how I try to approach delivering great programs to our community. So thanks for having me.
Amazing presentation. I was going to say that. That's succinct, fully, you dove into everything. It's so good.
Thanks.
Great overview. As a parent, I've dealt with you a lot. As a coach, I've dealt with you a lot, and I can't thank you enough. I think you do an amazing job.
Thanks, Ryan.
You are one man. You are very spread thin, especially when you have 3 different basketball practices going on at 2 different schools. And so just kudos to you. I think you're doing an awesome job. I love all the stuff you're putting together here. I think it's amazing. I just sort of have a quick question on, do we do any scholarships for?
Yeah, so I
Is
do.
that something?
Yep, I was able to build a little bit of scholarship money into my budget, so I'm able to provide some scholarship opportunities for families who kind of specifically ask for it. So what the tricky part for me is, I don't want to over advertise that, because then that money gets spread almost too thin, and it's like I'm getting too many requests. And so that's a tricky balance, and I think I can find a better way probably forward in terms of how I make those decisions and advertise the fact that we do have some, but I do have a little bit. And then I want to give a shout out to the Basalt Education Foundation, who, like for a garden club, for example, they basically gave us a big donation that covered most of the cost of that program, and it knocked the program down to $25 for anybody who wanted to sign up. So like, I think that, and they also helped out with our Count Me In Girls Math Camp as well. So, I think there's probably more opportunities to find outside groups that can help fund some of that stuff, but I also have a little bit of internal money that I can dole out as needed.
Because I think that'd be a great use for tobacco funds, just even carving out just a little extra to make sure that to me, these youth sports are such an important part of these kids, and to not turn anyone away if it wants to play. So
Totally.
thank you so much, but we'll let it to council.
Thank you. What I love the most about Basalt Rec and the programming that you do is that it's so accessible. It's for everyone. It's skill building more than it is competition.
Yep.
And I feel comfortable to sign my kids up for any and all of it, because, also really because of the way that you are with the kids, just whatever ability they have or difference, you're so welcoming and accommodating. So thank you so much for that.
Thanks. I really appreciate that. It means a lot.
So first, Matt, thank you for everything you do. It always blows my mind when I look at the amount of programming that we offer, that you are just one person, and I sometimes wonder if there's little clones of you running around, because there must be, to accomplish all of this. I guess with this, looking at those numbers from 22 to 25 and the growth in the programming, at what point do you get help? And,
Yeah.
have you identified that point and saying, this is kind of my breaking point, and then I need, whether it's an assistant director, whatever that looks like, and how close are we in those revenues to be able to support that role?
Yeah, I think it's a tricky question just because I do get some help. Obviously I have my seasonal help at the pool. I appreciated Ryan and Doug when I came to them a year ago and I said, the evening work is really taxing me for these basketball seasons. And there's times where it's like I'm literally staying an hour and a half or 2 hours after work to turn a key to open a gym for people. And so they were able to get me some money to hire like a high school helper who kind of takes care of some of that. That being said, like this week I'll be working late at basketball like 3 out of 4 nights. And the tricky part is there are times of the year where frankly, the job is very doable, and I don't feel as stretched thin. And then there's other times of the year where I'm like pulling my hair out, and like there's no way I'm going to get all this stuff done that I feel like I need to get done. So I think that's what makes it a challenge, is that it does really kind of roll ebbs and flows seasonally, and that makes it tricky in terms of like having a consistent, salary that I'm splitting that work with. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, totally. I guess the way I look at it too, as far as I get the seasonality of it, but in your presentation you mentioned a few things such as the registration. We could make that a little more seamless and easier, and as far as like raising outside funds to help fund some of these programs and making getting more scholarship money and then managing that programming. I at least see that there probably is quite a bit of more of that like administrative stuff that can be done year round that would improve, the recreation department as a whole if you had some help. Anyways, just throwing it out there that if it's something that, we could figure out how to afford, I think it would, we see that like our citizens want this programming. And if you had help, you're like, well, right now, it's kind of fine. I'm surviving, but could you expand your programming even more?
Yeah. Definitely. I think it's a great question. And I appreciate the sentiment and also the idea. Yeah.
Well, and could we partner also with like a Carbondale or Glenwood, or, they have to be going through some of the same, pains. But I love that you tout no revenue, yet you're running almost a $500,000 business yourself. And that's amazing. That's just, it just shows the amount of work you're putting in and what you're delivering. This is a great slide. And, I just can't say enough. I think the pool's amazing. I think that's one of the things that I sat on that I'm so happy that we did, and to see, I always call it the 80s summer in Basalt, because there's just kids running around, and it's just such a fun place to go. And
totally.
You always see someone and the whole staff is great. The shack's great. Everything's great. It's just an awesome little place.
It's a gem. I think so too. I don't always feel that way when I walk into the pump house and I'm like, oh, this thing broke now. Pulling my hair out. But no, I totally agree. It's like a gem of the community. And I think the last few years, I kind of want to like keep it just Basalt, but I think a lot of Carbondale folks have learned what a great pool it is over the last few years when they've been kind of forced to come here without having their own pool in their backyard. And hopefully we'll see them continue to come back. We'll see.
And to Ryan's point too, there's an awful lot of activities that are being staged at Crown now by Aspen Ski Club and the bike programs they have in the summertime, and the Swarm and the Roaring Fork United and us. It's interesting to, and I think you were interviewed during that Project Play initiative too by the Institute maybe, which was pretty significant data that came out of that. And they also have programs for parent coaches online, and which I would absolutely promote and support. We get a lot of parent volunteers, and they're all great people. But the more they know about coaching and playing with kids, it's that much better.
Totally.
In terms of the men, the men's lax, it's has a facility down at Willits on Wednesday nights. We take 60, 70 guys out of the community and put them on a field, and they have about 2 or 3 hours of time when they can get together, socialize, and, you know, physically assault each other. And they come away, you know, saying it's the best night of the week.
That's great.
And to take, you know, to get that stress taken away from, you know, their everyday lives and let them work it out there on that turf is really great. And they're really good caretakers too. They leave no trace. We pick up every can and whatever, banana peel that we leave. Always in touch with Trevor. He does a great job for you to coordinate that effort with irrigation and all that stuff. And then thanks for the hat. I forgot to bring a vintage Basalt Rec hat. I'll drop it in your office.
I want to see that.
That my kid Tyler wore when he was 7 or 8. It's
That's
still
awesome.
in pretty good shape, so I'll have to bring that by. Thank you, because this is the key to the foundation in the community. You know, is this whole these programs that support our kids.
For sure.
And there's a lot of them walking around that are full-grown people now, and they're good people because of these programs.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm excited to, and my own kids are in Basalt schools now. I'm excited to see, you know, like varsity sports in a few years that have a bunch of the kids that I used to be, you know, having
Yeah,
third grade
exactly.
soccer or whatever. Now, you know, tearing it up in varsity, I'm excited to watch that happen. So that'll be really fun. Well, thank you guys very much. I
Cool, thank
appreciate
you.
you having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
So amazing.
Awesome. Well, from recreation, let's transition to 6B, land use code amendment process presentation. Michelle, James, and
Yeah,
special
thank you.
guest.
We have Jessica Garrow here from Design Workshop. And, excuse me, we also have online Christian Weber, and I believe Riley Timmons is with him as well.
Sick,
Oh,
unfortunately.
Riley's not here,
Riley's
she's
not on
sick.
tonight, but-
But this item is a brief presentation from Design Workshop on the land use code amendment process that the town will be undertaking. And they'll go over process and timeline. As a little bit of background, the town's boards felt that it was time to do an overall update to the town code. The town staff had been doing kind of piecemeal amendments over time, just because of workload. And so it was time to do a overall overhaul to the code. And so staff put out a request for proposals, and Design Workshop was selected as the consultant to kind of manage this process for us. And so they're here this evening to go over that process and timeline. Jessica?
Thanks, James. Hello, all. I'm Jessica Garrow with Design Workshop, and we are excited to share an update on where we're at with the code update process. Really quickly, Design Workshop, our offices are next to Free Range here in Basalt, but we have studios in 7 locations across the United States, and we do have an interdisciplinary team. As I mentioned, Riley, who is with our Aspen Basalt studio, is sick this evening, so she's not on. She's our project manager. And then Christian Weber, who you have seen before as part of our work on the housing code amendments, he's out of our Denver studio and is also supporting this project. So a really great team to move through. As James said, the town has not completed a full update to the land use code in many years, and instead has some piecemeal adoptions, and that creates some conflict, some confusion, some sections of code that are there as kind of placeholders, not really used. And so really an important piece of this project is to think about the land use code in a holistic way, making sure that we are connecting to other code updates that are ongoing, and making it clearer. So that is what we are focused on. Wanted to share project scope and schedule. So we are anticipating going through the summer of 2026 with our process. We have started with a kickoff with the staff team. We've also begun work group meetings. We have a great working group that we've met with once, and we'll meet again in December and then throughout the process. And then we'll be moving into kind of more public-facing community engagement in early 2026 through that adoption process into the summer of 2026. We have completed an initial existing code analysis, and that is what we'll be talking more with our work group on, and then early in 2026 is when we'll come out with some draft code language. So tonight, I'm going to run through some of the pieces that are setting us up, and if there's time, we have a couple of very high-level questions for you as we're thinking about the update. So in terms of community engagement, we will have a mix of opportunities in terms of in-person workshops, those working group meetings, and then some online engagement opportunities using Let's Talk Basalt. So as we've begun this project, we have 6 really key guiding principles that we're using as we move through. And so a lot of these you'll see are about clarity and understandability. So making sure that the code is as clear as possible and minimizes the amount of interpretation for council members, for staff members, and for the community. There's always going to be a little bit of that as you go through different review processes, but we're really trying to minimize that. One of the ways that we do that is the second point here of articulating the why in regulation. So understanding why do we have a section related to annexation? What is the purpose of an annexation review? What is the purpose of a special review, et cetera? Thinking about clarity in the review process, not over complicating it. Clear language and enforcement options is something that's really important. And then key are these last 2, reinforcing ideas around sustainability that coordinate with other town efforts and the master plan, and then building off of the engagement and the process that occurred in the master plan rather than duplicating it. So we've got really kind of targeted types of community engagement anticipated. Land use code, I'm a dork and I love land use code. It is my favorite thing. Most people don't love the land use code because it is complex, confusing. And so part of how we are going to move through this process with you and with the community is trying to break this up into more manageable pieces. We're not going to hand you 200 pages of red line code because that is impossible to get through. We're going to break that up into pieces. And so right now, what we're anticipating that looks like is 3 different modules where we're talking about kind of big picture policies, procedures, what are the things that you need to make sure that you're doing a good job in your decision making. Then we'll move into things like nonconformities, annexation, subdivision, PUD, some of those bigger review processes, and then kind of closing out with zone districts, definitions, and thinking about affordable housing. And again, linking this with all of the other work that the town is doing. These are some of the high priority topics that we've talked about with staff and the working group. So again, that organization usability, integration of existing ongoing amendments, thinking about community character and design, our big processes, annexation, PUD, subdivision, and then making sure that we're aligning zone district changes with the zoning district map. The other way that we talk about land use code and kind of help folks kind of work through that is thinking about a different framework for those conversations. So we are going to be identifying when we're making code amendments where different amendments fall within these 3 buckets that are on the screen. So the first are simple and structural. Those might be, we've got information about zone districts in 3 locations. We're going to consolidate that, put that into one spot. There's maybe not a substantive thing that you need to review, but just know that we've organized it in a different way. Also adding visuals, tables, graphics, things like that. That's something that would be a great improvement to the current code. The second category is kind of administrative processes and enforcement. So thinking about where are there opportunities to streamline a process, making sure that the most important things are what is coming to council for review, and the maybe more mundane things that are regular could be reviewed by staff, and so working through that conversation. And then we'll highlight areas where there might be new policy concepts. And that's where we get into a little bit of kind of integration with ongoing amendments and the master plan goals. So we wanted to just highlight, as part of this process, we will be linking all of the language to different policies within the master plan. Because we've got a lot of ongoing work on the affordable and inclusive living, we wanted to just talk through how that might be integrated into the land use code. And I'm not going to read all of these things for you. But there are a couple of key goals around affordability and housing options. So thinking about how can the code, in terms of a review process for a subdivision, or the zoning allowances in the R3 versus the R1 zone district. How can they help address some of these key goals that the community has about creation of affordable and attainable housing, so that the private sector is helping support the development of that and not just the public sector? So thinking about how does that then integrate with opportunities for incentives, things like that. Making sure that from a development pattern perspective, we're trying to incentivize, we want to see development near transit versus far away from transit. Items related to this goal are actually ongoing, related to the work that Design Workshop is supporting for the affordable housing amendments, and the community passed kind of overwhelmingly the lodging tax to help support some of these things that are in the master plan, which is really exciting. We're also working on updates to ADU regulations and ways to support higher density starter homes, kind of smaller scale, and that would be something that's integrated. So some of the amendments that are already in process: the ADUs by right, administrative approval process to allow ADUs within planned developments, reducing the house size eligibility for exemptions, consideration of increasing the inclusionary housing ordinance percentage, standardizing housing mitigation for mixed-use development, and then increasing commercial mitigation rates. So those are things that council's already provided direction to our team and staff, and those will be ongoing, and they will move forward. And really importantly, as we are continuing to work through the bigger code process, we'll make sure those are integrated. So we can take those important initial steps now and then integrate into the larger code as we move forward. So then what are some of those things that would be coming forward? Looking at our dimensional allowances within zone districts, as well as land use typologies, making sure that things that we want to see, attainable housing, affordable housing, can go through maybe an easier process. And so we'll have a lot of community conversation, we anticipate, and conversation with you about what that might look like. Updating annexation requirements to reflect the master plan, moving on the mitigation rates, and then again, a lot of community engagement. This is kind of one of the background pieces. When we do code updates, we want to make sure you can track what is the existing article and how that is moving into a proposed article. The working group was really excited to dig into this, and so we'll have that conversation with them in December. I went very fast, but if you're so inclined, we would really appreciate and love your feedback on what you see as your priorities as council members for this code update. What are some of the challenges that you maybe see in your review process that can be assisted through this full code update? And what's working well? Like, we don't want to change something that you find really helpful. And so these would be helpful questions for you to answer, and I'm happy to answer any other questions you might have.
You mentioned this, Jessica, but I think a priority for me for the code, just, and this is kind of a general broad statement, is, you know, making sure that it is something that an average citizen can read and understand and digest, and not have to hire some kind of expert, you know, to help them understand and move through the process. You know, I think largely it is developments, and, you know, and they're working with a team and anyways, but I just think that anyone should be able to read our code and understand it without, you know, having to stress too much.
Yeah, and I think that's part of where those why statements come into play, but also consolidation, right? Like, as a homeowner, I sometimes am like, if I wanted to update my fence, like, where do I find that in the code, right? Like, just like how, thinking about it from a regular user.
Yeah, and that for me is so important, is just making it accessible and easy to digest and easy to find, like you said, so that just our regular homeowners know that it's there, and know, you know, have some confidence that they can find what they need and navigate.
Great.
So when you say that you want public engagement about interpreting the code, are you talking about the content of the code, or are you just talking about the way that it's written so that people can understand it? Because I'm a little concerned about having too many cooks in the kitchen
Sure.
when it comes to the code. Because the code, we have PUD, we have zoning regulations. And the first piece that's brought to my mind is the confusion, for example, around parcel 2E. There's a lot of language about a parcel like that. I'm concerned that having too many people weigh in is just rewriting. And I don't think that that is appropriate, because there are rules that are already there. Now, if we're finding a way to create a document that says these are all the rules about a particular parcel, a piece of land, and it all lives here for us to interpret it as it is, as it's written, that's fine. But I don't see it as like a regular person's job, even though you may love code and that's great,
Absolutely.
or just any Joe Schmo on the street,
Yeah.
to help a town interpret zoning.
Yeah, so it's a great clarification and question. So this project does not change anything about an existing PUD. Those PUDs have their existing development allowances, limitations. Those documents stay and live on their own. What we might be looking at is, what does it take to amend a PUD? If a PUD homeowners association gets together and wants to change something about their open space, or change something about the ability to build a basement or not, what does that process look like? And we would kind of engage the community about that, not about what's the specific language necessarily, but community, what do you think about that process? Should that be something that goes to city council to review or town council to review? Or is that something that should just go to the planning commission? Those are the types of kind of higher level questions that we would be asking the community.
So currently, those are questions that there's just no answer for that. That's what you're saying. Like if a HOA did want to change something about their open space, there's just no process. So
There is an answer right now, which would be you would come in, make an application, and have that go through a process that I think ends at town council. We would be saying, community, do you want to change that, right? Does it make sense that all of these decisions go to town council, or should some of these decisions be made at a staff level or at the planning and zoning commission level?
Maybe
So is a direct application of that the ADU?
yes,
Yes.
Okay.
that's,
Yes,
that
it's
So
the
we
exact-
would be
yes.
changing our code to allow what we have already said we want to allow by right,
Yeah.
which is a PUD being able to change their amendments to allow ADUs without having to come to
Correct.
council.
Correct.
Okay.
And these are all amendments that would come before council before they're put into place?
Yes.
We will review everything.
Yeah.
This is basically, imagine there's like, James is like the brain of Basalt. And he knows every little thing that's been done and all these different PUDs and there's 5 different iterations of everything. And we have done some land use coast change, but it's like, if you're looking for it, you're going 5 documents away to find it. They're just trying to take everything we've ever done, simplify it, and put it in one document. So that if you're trying to do anything in the town, you can go to this document, you can search this document, like you said, like fence. I wanna put up a fence. You're gonna type in fence, it's gonna take you to that section.
Right.
So that anyone can look at it, so you're not always just struggling to be like, hey, James, what happened on this development 10 years ago? Where did we sit here? What was that left here? All that stuff is still there. This is just how we go forward in process.
You're not going out to the community and saying, what do you think we should do when somebody wants to build a fence? You're just saying,
No, we're just taking everything that we've done.
Yeah.
It's basically just simplifying all the code language we have out there, because there's multiple different documents that, and some contradict each other, because something 10 years old says this, something 5-year-old says this. And so then a lawyer can say, well, your document says this, And then,
Yeah, no, I'll just clarify
That person,
that,
though, who's that expert? Because it isn't, you know, it's not you guys, right? Like, if there's something that contradicts, I want to understand who is the person or the working group that decides what what is the final say?
So if I understand your question, like if there's a question as to interpretation of the code, for example, there's a provision in the code that allows for code interpretation to be made, which I think goes to you, Michelle, as the planning director. But just to be clear on what this is doing and not, this is not taking all the land use entitlements that it might exist for different properties and putting them into the code. But it's how do we get from where we are, where a piece of property is now, and then moving forward. So if there is a property that has land use entitlements and there needs to be an amendment to it, one of the review criteria under the new code might say, ensure you comply with the provisions of your PUD control document or the annexation agreement. It's not to supplant those out of those agreements and put them in the code. So to the extent there's a lot of recorded documents that on particular developments in the town that contain all those restrictions and land use entitlements, those aren't going away. It's just the process for moving forward on any particular piece of property. So, I mean, that's what the land use code does. And this is trying to, with the policy goals, and I'm sorry if I'm stepping on your presentation, but with all the goals that you've laid out for this project, it's how do we make this work better for the town, for the citizens, for the council, I think is the approach.
Yeah, and community engagement is not going to be about the whole enchilada, right? It's taking it into some bite-sized pieces of, we want to ask the community the right questions, not the most complicated questions, right? And so it might be, hey, we're looking at different land use typologies, right? Different types of housing units. Should we allow duplexes in an R1 zone district? That's kind of a question that we can have a conversation about. But some of those more technical details are things that we would do with the working group, with planning commission, kind of at a staff level.
And can I ask, how did you go about assembling the working group, and like, what are their backgrounds, and are they staff, are they community members, are they engineers? I mean,
Yeah, the working group is a combination of Planning and Zoning Commission, Basalt Affordable Community Housing Commission, Bach Commission. We have post members on there, I think one or two. We have architects, a couple local architects. And you know, we generally went to our commissions and asked, you know, who would like to be part of this process. And I think we came up with a pretty good group that volunteered.
Yeah, they're regular code users who often will bring us questions like, this is a confusing section, what does this mean? Every time I go to figure out the parking ratio, I have to come and ask you guys the question. Or I can never find the fence regulations, how do we get to that easier? Also, what you see in a lot of updated codes are, you'll see illustrations of the process. You start here, then you go to this, then it goes to that. It sounds really basic, but I think we all know, like when you click on the municipal code, it's just super overwhelming. How do I know which place to go to? So that's a big aspect to it. The Basalt Land Use Code hasn't been updated in over a decade comprehensively, and that is, that's notable. That's not really how, it's a best practice to update the entirety of the code instead of the piecemeal things we've been doing. So this is a step to make the Band-Aids speak to each other and make sure they all align. Because I think, I don't, who said it, but somebody who likes to put holes in all of the dams, their fingers in all of the holes, that's a little bit of where our code is right now, and we need to just rebuild.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
It's always a goal to try to make things more fluid and easier to understand, and the applicant doesn't have to go through a process that's painful. And I was kind of fascinated by a quote that came in during the last discussion about a code change in the building for electrification. And when people are talking about implementing a new strategy on land use or implementing a new strategy in building, the comment is that that's an indicator that it's ripe to become code. So if there's enough demand in the community for ADUs, for example, in all zone districts, because it's obvious that that's an opportunity for people to make a little extra money or house a child, a grown person or whatever employee it is. But the ending statement was interesting because that also means that the cost is now prohibitive and the implementation is not onerous. And, you know, my experience with this goes back a ways, and it also goes back a ways when land use applicants were grassroots networking people that possibly were residents of the valley and understood the community character and what they were trying to do and all the things that came with the evolution of transit-oriented development and all those things. But now we face teams that the applicant puts in front of us that are very sophisticated, very well-financed, are in it for the long haul, and can basically almost understand the code better than any elected official that's ever sat here. And I think that's where the level of our participation needs to be increased is we really have to provide not just our committee members necessarily, to James' point, who might have some expertise or some opinion, but people that can really do this, like yourself, that's sifting through this, and your associates, to go through this stuff, because it is mind-numbing for a lot of the people. And our experience up valley with these bigger homes and the applicants that are coming in is they'll have 6 or 7 people on their team, every one of them an expert, and maybe not even from the area. From Washington or Houston or Paris, France, for Pete's sakes, you know. So how do you know, and they are on just better prepared than, because they're singularly focused on their land use application, right? We're focused on 10 of them at the same time, and it's really an interesting juggling act. The other one that has always been a little bit of a problem is the referral process, because those referrals come from a siloed special district, emergency services, you know, whatever the referral is, a county that has different rules than the other county does. And I think that's another place where we could tune that up somehow, you know, so that isn't the part of the process that slows us down for 6 or 8 or 9 months. Because they're on a path to doing other business with other development applications in their own jurisdiction. And for us to wedge our way in there and try to get a response quickly is pretty hard to do. And, you know, you've been working in the 2.5 years of Pickens County, and they're at a point where they're going to adopt a code that seems to have some contrary pieces in it about land use in the Roaring Fork Valley corridor that we may not be thinking along the same lines, especially on the transit-oriented stuff with their nodes, you know, that are sometimes not necessarily transit-oriented. So that's another one that complicates the issue. So, but I think that if we took the lead in this and tried to figure out how to implement an application process for fire mitigation permit, for an ADU permit, for the common ground threads that we want to accomplish, then the other stuff becomes less of a priority. We concentrate on what this 3-mile area looks like and, you know, go from there. But that's just, sorry to ramble, but I see it over the long term here, and it's been interesting to watch it, especially when we're redeveloping a place like Meadowood or Brush Creek with a 5,000 square foot 70 ski house turning into a 12,000 square foot structure, or the Meadows, right, that you're up to your eyeballs in. So that's my 20 cents, I guess, more than 2 cents. But we got to get the playing field leveled a little bit for the normal user, like a person that's trying to replace their water heater and furnace, and the developer who's building 250 homes.
I
just had a couple quick thoughts. I think this is such a great idea to simplify code, make it more accessible. I think that sets us up to have less contention if there's confusion or different interpretations. So I think that's great what Angel said about making it accessible to people who aren't lawyers or land use planners. I completely agree with. I really like the focus on being transit oriented. I feel like traffic is a hot topic, and the more we can put people on the bus, the better. One thing, and I know we kind of talked about it when we brought that slate a couple slides back of different things we'd like to see in the code. I got asked today, and I've been asked many times about increasing the housing mitigation percent. So 20%, 25% of square foot needs to be affordable. Folks asking, you know, if that can be higher. I don't think we need to jump to a crazy number, but I do think wherever we land, I want to make sure we're on solid footing and we've really thoroughly vetted what makes the most sense. I feel like for every free market home, you're adding pressure for more housing to get X% of a teacher, X% of a coffee shop worker. So making sure that's something we've solidly explored would be great. And then the last thing is is that a couple folks had met with me, and I think maybe a couple other folks on council, about code enforcement. Like they had felt that the code was good, specifically in the Hill District, about where, if you're tearing down a house, where the new house can be, what the footprint can be, but that it wasn't enforced to the degree of what the code should have been, and I wasn't there at the time, but I think simplifying code will help with that. And then also understanding through our diagrams or graphics or things like that, like how does it get through the process so someone can be like, oh wait, did that follow the process or not? And then have a way to address that would be good.
Great. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Okay.
I just have a quick question. It's not so much land use, it's, and I don't know if this is addressed in code. You can never cap it, but I've sat here for 8 years, and to see this, there's a constant quest of more. We need more, build more. This is bigger, transit, you know, and buzzwords and all this, and I just wonder, and you know, I know the problem that we have enough water, we have enough sanitation, but I wonder, where is the carrying cost? What is the max load for Basalt that takes Basalt from the town to a city? You know, like I just feel like this endless growth, and it's not anyone here's problem or fault, but I just wonder where we address that, because it's continually coming. There's more pressure coming from down valley. We saw it in the last meeting with Skiko. You know, I don't know how we address it, and it's not so much land use code, but I just wonder where that falls in this world as government of, is there a tipping point that pushes us over into not a non-functioning community, but just not the community that we all wanted to live in? And I know everything's changing and it's a constant thing, but I don't know if that's something that's even approachable in land use code. As, you know, you can never say, oh, our town is capped at 5,000 houses, but I just wonder, where is that to be addressed, and how is that to be addressed? Because I feel like at some point, you know, you just build it out, and it's not what any of us came here for.
Yeah, and there are pieces that can absolutely be addressed through the land use code, and that is through your dimensional and your use allowances and limitations in zone districts. So having a cap on height, a requirement for setbacks, limitation on the size of buildings within zone districts, coupled with what are the types of housing units or commercial spaces that we want to see, making those things allowed by right, and the things that we don't want to see either prohibited or through a conditional use. So there's some of those tools that can be used pretty effectively within the code. And the state has limited communities' ability to do growth management in the way that some Up Valley communities have done. So that is not really a tool that's available to us, so it is more of the kind of typical zone district types of tools.
And to that point, is there an opportunity to do some community engagement around those subjects that, are within our rights as a town to manage through the code? I think that rightfully we look at our master plan to guide a lot of our principles, but I'm super weary of the fact that our master plan was drafted pre-COVID, which was, I think, a very different environment in Basalt. And so I'm not saying let's go and rewrite or ignore the directive that the master plan gives, but I do think that this is an opportunity to re-engage the community and kind of take a new pulse on some of those things, right? Because the way that COVID did affect and shift our community, I think, was something that nobody could foresee. And I think it has changed people's, it may have changed the way they responded to the outreach and engagement during that master plan process. So for what it's worth, I'm kind of with Ryan, is how do we use this process to the degree that we legally can to re-gauge some of that.
Yeah, I also just want to bring up, and if I have this wrong, please let me know, but I feel a little weary about, your firm is one that benefits from there being more development in Basalt. That's how you make your money. So I'm a little concerned about handing off this process to a firm to look at code and development standards that benefits from more development. And I just need to say that for my own peace of mind.
Sure, and I'm happy to maybe have an offline conversation on that if that's helpful.
Like, I don't want anything about this process for there to be any sort of pressure to write things or present things in a certain way to have people respond such that it makes it look like people would want more development.
Yeah.
I don't want, I would be wary of leading questions or anything that would frame the public's response in a way that looks like we want more development because, simply because you guys, you work with the town. When there are more development projects, you have more projects to work on.
To that point too, we have a limited number of consultants in the Valley. We seem to use the same ones all the time, which isn't a bad thing because they're engaged with us over decades. Some of them, DWI's been here for 50 years. But what I see too is the master plans are advisory. They're guiding documents. They talk about topologies and neighborhoods. They talk about character. They talk about all the things we talk about. But there's always been difficulty in that when you wanted to put teeth behind the master plan, the code was the way to do that. So then what happens when you start talking about how to implement a strategy of house size, height, character, setbacks, and that's when, the ping pong starts, right? And so I've always found it interesting that some of these things are never memorialized, but we repeat since 99, and we skipped almost 8 years before we updated that. Then we skipped almost another 10 years before we updated it again. And then 2020 we're now 5 years, and that's the typical timeline when you start talking about updating. But COVID, that wasn't foreseen, but the down valley migration of the workforce, the cost of living in the upper and Pickens County, that was all clearly understood. And that the issue around affordable housing, deed restrictions, community character, transit, that was all baked into those discussions and master plan processes for a long time, not in the last 5 years. But we couldn't get to a place, I think, where when we created UGB, for example, and tiered our infrastructure and came up with schedules to pay for that infrastructure out to the school, then all of a sudden, the land around us, and there's a commissioner that made a famous statement in here one night. He said, every problem in this community can be solved by land use. I was like, what? Not every problem in this community can be solved by land use. It has to be solved by an agenda of elected officials that has a continuous repetitive behavior attached to it, which comes connected to the code. And, you know, when you go through a divisive time for 10 years, where there's continuous discussion and negotiating over what is density, then, you know, you basically put yourself in a position of stagnation. And it's kind of odd, because generationally, a 5-year plan to get to the end zone isn't a big deal for some people that are in a certain generation, but it's a very big deal for other people that are exiting. So I think it's, this is really a big discussion, but it's one that happens, and it's a breakthrough moment generally with elected officials when it does happen. And you can see it going back, the decisions and how they flowed and what impact it had locally on us, whether it was extending out to the high school or doing Midland Avenue. There was these timeframes that you can almost do on a timeline and say, this decision resulted in this, and this activity resulted in this. And it's kind of interesting to go back and look at those key things, like bringing the rivers back into the community. That was like, oh, because we were turning our back on the rivers every day. Yeah, with the development and the land use and the buildings that we had, we were putting dumpsters in the river corridor. The trash was always behind the buildings in the river, which we said, that doesn't make any sense. So, but this is why we're sitting here, I think, why I am. And
I was just going to respond to a couple threads in the comments, and one is just on process. So these code amendments are going to be formulated by Jessica and her team, working with staff. They're going to go to P&Z, and then ultimately it's up to council whether or not they get adopted or they get adopted with amendments. And so within the code amendment, again, there's a lot of the kind of best practices thing that will come to the code, but there is existing zoning and zone districts contained in the code. Properties are zoned, and there is the master plan. So Rick, you're right, starting from a high level Angel, that with the master plan and our future land use map, that kind of provides some larger policy statements, although our master plan have a lot of meat on it, and applications need to be in general conformance with the master plan. But then you have your zone districts that different properties are zoned as, and heard the phrase in the past that communities should zone property like they mean it. And so the zone districts are an opportunity to place restrictions on the use of the property, including things like density, to kind of get at, carrying capacity concerns. But as those more substantive changes, or to the extent those more substantive and not just kind of procedural changes get wrapped up in this code amendment, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for input through this process. So.
I would maybe suggest a work session in the middle of this with council and possibly P&Z for them to kind of tell us what they see, because I feel like they see a bunch of stuff that we don't see, and especially because this council will be turning over in March, and this doesn't seem like it's gonna get, so I just would definitely make sure we're keeping council abreast on everything, and it's definitely needed. And then I'd also just like to bring up, is there some sort of like simpler mid update to the master plan? Because we have gone, if you go through the master plan, a bunch of the stuff that potential properties or, there's still some out there, but a bunch of stuff is already done now. And moving or over there, broken ground and sailed from what is even close to what was in the master plan. And so I don't know if we need to completely rework it, but I think a consolidation of some of it and maybe a giant done on this page where some of it is done, and just a little reevaluation of where we're at, because I think the point of what happened to this town and other communities like us, I don't think it's just us. I think it's a microcosm of everything. COVID affected a lot of us, and I think we're still paying the prices. So.
Yeah, I do think probably at a future council retreat, going through the master plan and assessing council's status on that would be really important. Because you're right, we have checked off a lot of the boxes in a lot of the categories, and times have changed since it was written. And the shelf life of the master plan expires at some point, so that would be a good place to start.
And I think we're seeing development leapfrog over the town of Basalt, all the way down to Glenwood. It's jumping over us. That's what really is interesting to see happen. Because it used to stop here, or Willits. Now it's Cattle Creek and further, going east as well.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you so
Any
much.
other comments or questions? Awesome. Thank you.
Great, appreciate it.
Okay, moving on to council actions. We're gonna catch up, folks. 7A, public hearing and second reading of ordinance number 18, series of 2025. An ordinance of the town council of the town of Basalt, Colorado, approving a site plan review, special review, and community housing review for the construction of 5 second-story residential units at 230 Park Avenue, Basalt, Colorado.
Thank you very much.
Elegant choice.
So you know, I'm Sarah Nadolny with the Planning Department. I have here today Brad Elliott. He's the architect and is representing the applicant team today. So as you said, this is second reading regarding of ordinance number 18, series of 2025, regarding the request for special review, site plan review, and community housing review for the proposed development at 230 Park Avenue. Go to the next slide. I'm going to do a real brief overview just to reground everyone. The star shows where the subject site is. The site is located within the Basalt Industrial Park and is zoned industrial PUD. Next slide, please. And as a reminder, the applicant is proposing to add 5 second-level residential units to the existing one-story building at 230 Park Avenue. And these include 2 studio units, 2 one-bedroom units, and 1 3-bedroom unit. And the applicant is proposing to deed restrict the 2 studio units at a Category 2 rental rate to meet the inclusionary housing mitigation requirements. Other site improvements include, and you can go to, oh, actually, no, stay on that one if you don't mind. Thank you. Defining the on-site parking, adding 7 off-site parking spaces that are adjacent to the lot, adding a landscaped shared open space for 3 of the residential units towards the rear of the site, fencing the lot and defining the ingress and egress lanes to the site, and providing trash and recycling areas as well as snow storage on the site. So at first reading of the ordinance on October 28th, the council did not request any additional information to be brought back at this reading, and you approved the ordinance as drafted by a unanimous vote. So ultimately, staff recommends that the council approve the ordinance at second reading with the conditions as drafted. I guess you can flip through the next couple ones if you'd like, that just show the existing conditions on the site with the one-story lot, one-story building on the lot. And here is some examples for the next one of the proposed development. You can hit that one, and just pops it up using that same footprint. So happy to answer any questions that council may have. Again, we have Brad here representing the applicant team, or we could open for public comment.
I'm going to start with public comment. I will open public comment at 7:25 or 7:24. Do not see anyone. James is the only attendee, Gloria.
Yeah.
Hey, Gloria.
Yep.
There's no public comment. I will close public comment at 7:25 and ask for any council questions. I just have one question. If you go back to the slide and Brad might not be able to answer this. I just have a small concern if you go to slide 3,
Site plan.
or even if you went to slide 4, you know, if you look at the parking's great. So is he gonna change some of the use of this bit? Like, is he not gonna use as much of the parking, obviously, that he is now? Cause like if like that whole area, that's the parking lot, is
Yeah.
just tons of construction stuff, which it's his building, he can do what he wants. I just wanna make sure that we're not gonna have.
He's looking to move some of that stuff off-site.
Okay,
He has other properties.
okay, that's what I figured. I just wanna make sure it just like that one picture is kinda like nicely angled, so you don't see any of that, so.
Yeah, no, most of that stuff will be moved.
Cool. That was my only question, so. If no one has any other questions or concerns, I'm happy to take a motion.
Mayor.
I move that the town council adopt ordinance number 18, series of 2025 on second reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Pam, please call the roll.
Happily. Let's begin with Hannah Berman,
Yes.
Angela Anderson,
Yes.
Rick Stevens,
Yes.
Angel Dupré-Bouchard,
Yes.
Ryan Slack, and Dieter Schindler.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
And thank you, I love this stuff. This is great infill. This is what we talk about in the master plan, and we're continuing to talk about, so.
Thank you. We're
It's a
looking
great
forward to
use of
building it.
that lot. Okay, let's move on to 7B, public hearing and resolution number 55, series of 2025. A resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, approving a PUD preliminary plan for construction of 16 residential units on parcel 9, Cypress Meadows subdivision, PUD Basalt, Colorado. James and team.
Yeah, thank you. We have the design team for the Parcel 9 development here this evening. We've got Sarah Ty from Connect One, which is also known as Lionheart, and then also Scott McHale, who's from Z Group Architects. And we also have Jay Ingstrom, who is the civil engineer on the project. And as Ryan indicated, this item is a public hearing to consider the Parcel 9 Cypress Meadows preliminary plan application for 16 two-bedroom affordable housing units that are proposed by the town. This is the preliminary plan phase of the development review. It's a PUD review, which entails 3 rounds of review by the Bach Committee, the Planning and Zoning Commission, and Town Council. It'd be a sketch plan, a preliminary plan, and a final plan review. And so the preliminary plan stage that we're at now is the second out of the 3 rounds of review. And as a bit of background, the property subject to the application is just to the south of the rugby field. It's a .46 acre property, and it's within the urban growth boundary. And as part of the sketch plan review, the council reviewed the 16 two-bedroom units and was supportive of the sketch plan at that time. It is noted that the project was originally designed for 14 units, but the council at a work session directed increasing it by 2 units to 16 dwelling units. That was carried through the sketch plan review and then as part of the preliminary plan review that you have in front of you. As a bit of a refresher on the application, the building that is proposed is to contain 3 levels with parking on the first floor, as well as a couple of dwelling units, and then 2 levels of affordable housing on the upper 2 floors. The project includes exterior decks as well as exterior storage to the units and bike storage. Staff feels that the units will be livable units and meet the livability requirements in the community housing guidelines. The design team can give you some update on the improvements that have been made to the plan since the sketch plan level as part of their comments. In reviewing the application, Staff identified a series of discussion items that are in the Planning and Zoning Commission memo that's attached to your packet. They include consistency with the master plan, compatibility with the neighborhood, parking, consistency with the community housing guidelines, the minor subdivision that is requested to adjust the lot line with the adjacent park parcel, the traffic, and then green building and wildfire mitigation requirements. In reviewing the application, staff identified a series of goals from the master plan that's in the Planning and Zoning Commission's memo that relate to affordable housing creation in the urban growth boundary and close to transit. And staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission felt that the project's consistency with these goals was appropriate, and it's been carried through the preliminary plan phase. In terms of consistency with the neighborhood, at the sketch plan level, there was considerable discussion about the consistency of the project with the surrounding area. And it was noted at sketch plan as well as during the P&Z's review of the preliminary plan that the size and scale perspective is consistent with the surrounding development of multifamily that generally has 3 stories of residential with parking being part of the first floor. This includes consistency with the lakeside townhomes that are adjacent to the property, as well as the Park Modern and Lake Modern developments as well, and the Willits townhomes, which are generally 3 stories of residential. There was considerable discussion at sketch plan about the potential for the building to be pushed to the north a bit towards the rugby lot as part of the sketch plan review, even though it was the building distance from the lakeside townhomes is consistent with the distances between the lakeside buildings themselves. And so the design team looked at the potential to move the building north between sketch plan and preliminary plan. And it was determined that it really wasn't feasible to move the building north for a series of reasons. It included the extension and existence of utilities and easements on the north side of the building. Also the need for water quality and drainage improvements to take advantage of existing improvements on the north side of the building. And then also the fire truck staging area, which is located right here, was needed on the north side of the building and would prevent pushing the building further north. If you push the building north and got rid of this staging area, it would require a more significant fire truck turnaround. And that kind of came out of our review as part of looking at the potential to move it north. But the design team can speak more on this topic as part of their comments. It was noted by the Basalt Affordable Community Housing Commission, BAC, that the units meet the livability requirements. They reviewed the project at both the sketch and the preliminary plan and found that they satisfied those requirements. With regards to parking, the parking was adjusted slightly between sketch and preliminary. It reduced the overall parking by 1 parking space, but as part of the review of the parking, the design team was able to convert 7 of the spaces that were previously compact car spaces to standard parking spaces. And staff and the design team believe that those will operate much better as standard spaces. The project still contains 2 parking spaces per unit and then has an additional 7 guest parking spaces that are programmed into the project. It is noted that there will be a slight reduction in parking at the park parcel because of the lot line adjustment. But it was noted at the sketch plan level by the town manager that the town would be looking to budget to adjust the pavement width on East Valley Road in the area to try to accommodate additional parking and to kind of legalize the existing on-street parking that's adjacent to the rugby lot. So that's what's being looked at here in the future. In terms of traffic, it was discussed at Sketch that a good portion of these units that are in the development were part of the traffic studies for the overall Cypress Meadows and Willits development over the years. And it was verified with CDOT that there would not be an access permit that would be required for the development. And then finally, on the discussion items, the green building SBR, as well as wildfire mitigation requirements, will be required to meet those standards at the time of building permit. The wildfire mitigation requirements will probably change between now and the time of building permit. The state has adopted a statewide wildfire mitigation code, and so the town is going to have to make updates to our wildfire mitigation, and so council will be seeing code amendments on wildfire mitigation requirements coming up early in the next year. So there's a requirement in the draft resolution that the project would have to meet those updated code requirements. So this evening, staff would suggest hearing comments from the applicant team and then taking public comments because it is a public hearing and providing council discussion. It should be noted that the Basalt Affordable Community Housing Commission, BAC, as well as the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the preliminary plan with the conditions that you have in your draft resolution. And so with that, I will stop sharing my screen and turn it over to the design team for comments.
Nice. You guys to be able to see, yep, there we go. Well, we are excited to be back in front of you with an advancement to our design and bringing the project further to fruition. And this is a rendering to kind of show you some of the advancements in the site design, but one of the reasons that we're probably the most excited to be back in front of you is that we're excited to bring this project that is helping to solve the affordable housing crisis closer to fruition. I think we're doing a good job in working with the town to help meet a lot of the goals that were set out in the 2024 Basalt Housing Needs Assessment, and so we're stoked that this is moving right along. As James mentioned in his very thorough summary, not a huge amount has changed since the last time that you saw this plan. So the primary things that have changed are additional technical details added to the plan. So we've added additional design to the amenity spaces, additional design to certain functionality aspects like trash, recycling, mail, bike parking, we-cycle access. So those are the primary things that have evolved since the last time that you've seen this plan. And I'll walk you through a little bit of those things briefly. Scott can take you through the architecture, which actually hasn't really changed at all. And then we can address some of the comments from the last time that we saw you guys. In particular, James talked about them, but there was discussion of trying to move the building north to maintain a greater distance from us and our neighbors to the south. As James said, we explored that, and it did not turn out to be very feasible. We can talk a little bit more about the reasons why, and then open it up to questions and comments. So to start you off with any alterations to the plan, as James mentioned, we have reduced the number of compact car spaces that we are requesting in this plan, which also correlated with an overall reduction in parking by 1 space. So we still have more parking than is required for this project, but it is one space less than the last time you saw this. But that means that we are only requesting 4 compact spaces. Starting on the south side of the building, we have, as we did before, one of our vehicular entrances. We have our parking and our fire access and staging on the south side here. And then we've added additional detail to the community gathering space on the south side of the building. So with this community gathering space, we have a seating area, an outdoor grilling area, and then a small landscape space with path that allows access from the side entrance to the parking garage and structure here down to the path that goes along the existing pond. Then on the north side of the building, we have similarly evolved the exterior functionality space. So this is not really community space, but it's functional space. In the addition of large bike parking racks here, evolution of the trash, recycling, and compost enclosure, addition of a covered lockable bike corral for additional bike storage in addition to the exterior bike storage here, and our location for mail pickup and drop-off, which was coordinated with the post office. Moving around, we have coordinated with WeCycle to size and locate a WeCycle station that will serve both the residents of this project as well as users of the rugby park and residents of adjacent properties. We have our fire access still here to the north side of the property, which will come right off of East Valley Road. And then we have our other vehicular ingress here at the north side. We opted against putting any kind of physical barrier at this northern location here. Instead, continuing to preserve this kind of neck down, the creation of an indicator on the asphalt, and then the inclusion of an entry sign or entry marker for this project. Outside of those alterations, this is largely what you've seen before. We did work on the planting plan to make sure that we have a significant landscape buffer between our project and our neighbors to the south, in particular where our project is getting closer to our neighbors. And then we have located the community space where the space widens out a little bit, so we can still continue to have a pretty significant landscape buffer between the lakeside townhomes and our project. And now I'm going to turn it over to.
Did you want to go through this?
I'm going to go through that at the end, actually.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Architecturally, as we mentioned, no big changes. We're just massaging and finessing, making sure we're meeting all the requirements, and then buildability is kind of the next steps as we work towards final design development and then construction documents. So with that, the floor plan, these are the floor area sheets, so these will remain the same. We have our units as we had before, so I'm not going to run through all that to save our time. Livability standards, go back one. We have there, so that was, I think, yeah, that was the same. We still have the 2-bedroom configuration with 2 full baths. So everything stays the same as it was with Bach. We're meeting all livability requirements or exceeding them in most cases. So we feel that the units are feeling really good at the time. Let's go to the next sheet. First floor plan, still 2 units. We kind of massage the entries to make them more kind of privatized and separated from the garage, so we can see that each has kind of a protected screen, and then private access to its little storage. We've got our ADA parking spaces right close to the elevator, with direct access from the outside as well. And then the rest of the parking spaces, we've got our fire sprinkler, water entry room over by the far stair as well. So that's all been coordinated with the fire department. Second floor podium, 7 more units, same as before with the storage units, 2 forms of exit, egress, and then our elevator. Let's go to the third floor. Similar repeated plan stacked on top. Yeah. Okay, let's go next. On the exterior elevations, again, just a little bit added detail. We're trying to give it a good, rural character that fits in well with the community and with Willets out there. So right now, we're looking at a warmer tone, earth tone look. So we're looking at cement board siding that's been stained, or it could be kind of faux wood look metal siding, similar to what's on the Lake Modern buildings out there. So it has a wood grain, it'll be a faux wood look. As you know, with the WUI and fire and protection standards, we want it to be non-combustible, especially for insurance rates now. Condominiums with wood siding are losing their insurance. So we have to provide these new buildings with good fire protection, good fire ratings, and non-combustible materials. So we're meeting all the standards there, and that will continue to evolve, as James said, as the state and national standards keep changing. We do have screening on the lower levels for the parking garage that we saw below. We've adjusted some of the openings just to make it echo some of the aesthetic of the window openings above, and just to give it some character, a little more, better character, sorry, in keeping with the rest of the building. And then let's jump to sections. Same heights as before, nothing has changed. So as James said, we're keeping, we feel, in keeping with the standards that are out there for three-story buildings. We're doing as much landscaping as we can around it. And then let's go to the 3D. Thanks. Renderings, we can see have been updated with landscape. And again, just some minor little windows and doors and openings around the building, just getting things to align and feel really good. So we're feeling really good about the architecture and how it's fitting in with the landscape and the surroundings. Now this, sorry, go back, Sarah. We could zoom in on that top. We can see the little structure that we've added outside. So we wanted to keep trash and bicycles. Again, for any new multifamily project, there's just a lot of bikes and things and toys and all sorts of sporting good, things that we have. So instead of keeping them in the unit, we've designed this structure. Half of it is for trash recycling, compost. It's all bear proof. And then half of it is for the bikes. So we'd have covered bike parking that could be tiered. We could have double stacked in there, or other racks for other sporting goods in there for the homeowners. So that feels really good.
And this is in addition, obviously, to the storage that they have associated with their units in the structure. So there's a lot of opportunities for storage of different size, scale, and value of your sporting goods and bicycles.
And keeping it covered is kind of nice. It keeps the, most of us don't have $500 bikes anymore. Electric bikes are $10,000, which is absurd, but that's the reality. The post office, again, like Sarah said, we met with the postmaster, kind of went through all the different places that the parcel boxes and post boxes could go on the site. He wanted us to try to achieve this location. It's best for his mail delivery and the routes that they take. So this was kind of what they came up with, and we have met and exceeded, I think, the parcel boxes that they're looking for as well. Because again, with the USPS taking over with some of the Amazon deliveries, there's a lot of deliveries nowadays that those guys have.
And then there's also space in addition. So the advantage of this location for the mail service is that there's also additional space for future parcel boxes as needed. So if the building needs to add specialty FedEx boxes, if they need to add additional parcel boxes as shipping becomes bigger and more prevalent, there is space in this location.
That's right. That's it.
All right. So the last thing we have is a conversation that we had with council last time about, can we move the building further north to maintain a greater distance between, in particular, these lakeside townhome neighbors and our structure. So you can see, obviously, as we get further towards Valley Road, because our building is at an angle, the distance between our building and the lakeside townhomes increases. But it is in greater proximity to a couple of the units on the end here. We did look carefully at moving the building north, and for a number of reasons, which James, already explained, so I'm not going to belabor them much more. It was a challenge to move the building north, and I'm going to zoom into this area right here to talk a little bit more specifically as to why. So these red lines here indicate utility easements, existing utility easements, and oh, the novelty, there's actually utilities in these easements. And so moving the building north would require renegotiating easements as well as relocating utilities, because you can see that we're already extremely close, even at our closest point. So moving the building further north would require eating into these easements, renegotiating these easements, or resizing the building. Some other things that James mentioned are that we have fire staging both on the north and the south of the building currently, which was per the request of the fire department. And if we move the building to the north, we won't have access to the full northern fire staging area coming off of Valley Road, which would require potentially a larger fire truck turnaround, resulting in a higher degree of the site being paved, both on the north and the south, which we didn't feel was beneficial to anyone. So continuing to locate the building where it is simplifies and reduces the cost of interacting with these existing utilities, simplifies our fire access, reduces the need for paving, and still allows us to take advantage of this area up here for water quality, stormwater quality treatment. Just as a reference, we do have this exhibit that kind of illustrates the distances between the lakeside townhomes and our structure, which are located here. So we're about 50 feet from the nearest lakeside townhome unit at our closest location. At our furthest location, or at our median location, we're at about 68 feet. And we have just some kind of reference distances for the townhomes in the rest of the area for you to look at. So the lakeside townhomes are about 55 to 60 feet from each other at their closest point over here. If you go to the Park Modern townhomes, they're about 50 feet from each other. If you go to some of the townhomes in this area, sometimes they get quite a bit closer, but the 50 to 60 foot distance is kind of the precedent in this area. So we do feel comfortable maintaining that existing distance. And that is the last of our presentation, if you guys want to jump in.
This being a public hearing, I'm going to open the public hearing at 7:52 and take any public comment, but I do not see any public comment, and no one in the room appears to want to make any public comment. So I'll close public comment at 7:53, if that. Any comment from council or concerns?
I have just a couple super quick questions. One, why are we doing more parking than is required? I feel like generally the more we can kind of encourage, I'll say, people to get on a bike or the Basalt connector, things like that, the better.
So a couple of things. We wanted to make sure that we were parking this at a minimum of 2 parking spaces per unit. And then in addition, we wanted to make sure that we had sufficient guest parking. So one of the concerns that we heard about from the neighbors was that they did not want any parking spilling over into any spaces that were not designated for this specific project. And that was a big comment that we heard, as much as proximity. And so we felt as though it was important for the quality of this development, for the livability of this development, and for the to allay the concerns of neighbors and to make sure there's not overflow of parking, that we provide as much parking as we could feasibly provide for this project.
Gotcha. And sorry if I missed this, but will you just jog my memory how many, I know it's one less than last time, but how many over the parking
So
7? Right.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Also, can you just give me a ballpark conception on how much it costs to relocate utilities? I'm assuming it's very expensive.
The civil engineer is on the phone, and I'm going to put him right on the spot.
You guys hear me all right?
Yep.
gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, as for a ballpark estimate, I mean, I can't really give you anything that's off the cuff. I mean, I'd really have to kind of go through an analysis onto the relocating of it. But that being said, I mean, it would be a significant cost because no matter what, it's going to be constrained in that area just because you have the lake right in that area. You also have that existing path. And then there's also those existing trees as well. So by relocating those utilities, not only do you have the costs, it's a very constrained area. So, yeah, I don't necessarily want to throw a number at it, but at the same time, it would be a significant cost that would definitely impact this project.
Got it. Thank you.
Can you go back to the distances?
Sure. Which one?
Because I think what we know from the feedback that at least we've seen pass through about this, and you can zoom in on the distances, is the proximity. And I hear the parking, that you could, go and park in that middle lot and then walk around and visit your friends in this building. And I know that we're showing 50 feet between the left building and the corner of that building. But the distance between that building and that first parking spot's got to be like, what, 20 feet, 15 feet?
If I was going to say that this is 50 feet right here and we're slightly more than half, I'd say just over 25 probably,
Yeah, so,
right here.
and I guess that's why I'm wondering, like, I hear what they're saying about the parking, but I bet if they didn't have, the truck parked 15 feet, 20 feet, whatever you want to say away, because I'm looking more for that corner building, like where the 68 is.
Mm-hmm.
If you go back to 50 feet, yeah, that makes sense. But if you zoom that guy in and you're in the unit that's set back a little bit to that parking spot, that's not 25 feet. And I feel like that would be the person that we would hear most about. And then consequently, with 4 extra parking spaces, is that necessary then? And then do you kind of kill, maybe the proximity, at least for that 1 or 2 spots, to give them a little extra space? It just, that I drive by that parcel every day, and this project, while cool and, I'm excited for the affordable housing option, or not option, just like the gain, if you will, is very, very dense for that space. Incredibly dense, I would say. And I know that when we spoke about this, it was, why don't we add 2 more?
I'll take full blame for that.
But also within like the last month, it's been like, well, I know I've always said, I don't put as much as possible, and then we always kind of recede a little bit to make it more neighborly, I suppose. So I would question, if we have additional parking spots, would they really have the parking or the proximity as their issue? And my gut says proximity would be the issue. Does that make sense?
Proximity of the structure or proximity of the parking?
The
I
car
understand, yes,
to that
yeah, I understand what you're saying.
that person's back window, kitchen,
Yep,
you know.
yep, I understand what you're saying.
25 feet's about half the room.
I would think if you drew that line like you're talking, eliminated those 2 spots, you would probably feel more comfortable with that. We still have 5 extra spots.
And I feel like they would feel more comfortable with that, because I don't live there, but if,
No,
you've seen the traffic, the letters come through, and like, please just give us some space, right?
I'm guilty of talking both sides, so I cannot.
So I feel like, that would be my sort of initial feedback. I would also be curious as to what it would cost to put the utilities, to have a look. I mean, significantly impact the project. I mean, that's,
You're already digging there, you're already.
yeah, it's pretty generic, I guess, so I think knowing a little more, that it's not gonna hurt my feelings, I don't think. Because that building's build-out is all on that side, that's where you have the stairs, it looks like the elevator, second bedroom. And what I'm hearing is you can't flip that to the other side for proximity, because of that utility, it runs right against the corner of the building. So I'm wondering if they're, and these are just my thoughts, but to me, it's really, really dense for that space. And if we want to be neighborly, we should look at that. And I would either sacrifice a unit, certainly sacrifice a couple parking spots.
Yeah, those utilities are gas and electric, so they're
Shell,
pretty,
2 feet deep.
pretty major.
It's actually
Well,
more,
it's
there's a sewer main that runs through there, and it's actually currently within a 20-foot easement. And if we were to, technically, these days they ask for a 30-foot easement. So, you know, I mean, I guess if they would allow us to maintain a 20-foot easement, then, you know, there might be potential for realigning that. Yes, correct. That one you just highlighted right there.
Yep, so
And
that's,
so, I mean, that's the one that would be the cost prohibitive utility line there.
So then if you go to the bottom of that, and I'm not trying to whatever, I'm just trying, you know, I know some of the people that live in this, and this is the one I've heard the most feedback on, is, you know, the proximity is like, does that bottom 2 units or whatever's down there, does it need to be that big on the bottom? Proximity is their issue.
Well, it's not just the utilities either, it's also that fire
Well, it's
staging area.
The rest of the building's above that too, so it's like,
Yeah.
even if you would eliminate that building
It's
envelope
6 units.
is that shape,
Yeah.
right? So even if you remove those 2 units, the building's still gonna be 50 feet from them regardless. It's just, you couldn't remove those 2 units.
The
I mean, you
bottom- the
could.
bottom ones.
Yeah, I mean, the ones we added were on top.
Right, but what do we have down here? 2 bedrooms?
4 bedrooms, yeah.
Two?
Two bedroom.
2 bedrooms?
two bedrooms.
So,
So you could reconfigure the building
right,
into
so
one-bedroom units.
instead of having a little build out with the stairs, could you make 1 bedroom down there?
Or you still have the building.
So you get more of a rectangle building as opposed to that little build out. That deals with proximity on the second closest point to the building. Does that make sense?
But then the second story, what are you gonna do with that? Cause that second story
It's dependent on.
rises all above this. So
And
you're
I'll-
still gonna have that 50-foot distance.
Yeah, I'm gonna find, let me
Whether
go to
you have that
the, here we go.
I hear what you're saying. You're saying the building goes straight up. It
Correct.
doesn't
Yeah,
get
so you're like
So
right
this is-
there.
back in.
Correct.
Yeah.
This is the elevation of the area that we're talking about. So these are the 2 ground floor units right here, right? And then because of the, you know, the stackable nature of the structure,
Got it?
we stacked 4 more identical units above them. So if you were to change, for example, if you wanted
That
to,
one, you're changing all of them.
you're changing the whole stack above it, correct?
So you'd take
Yeah.
3 bedrooms out of the project, yeah.
I-
You'd still get the unit count, but you'd lose 3 bedrooms.
I also feel like looking at the comparable distances in, you know, the whole area, I feel like 50 feet is pretty defensible, you know, like but I do like your idea, considering we are oversubscribed on the parking, because I'm with you, you know, it's like, if all of a sudden that's my unit and I'm 15 feet from my F-150, you know?
That's exactly
I'm
what I'm
like,
thinking, is the guy behind us who
I
fires up
don't,
his diesel in the
yeah, like
morning,
I'm not
and
super
he's 15 feet away from my
stoked about
door.
that. But if you can if you can find a way to landscape those 2 parking spots and create more buffer there, I don't see why we wouldn't do that. And then you have that 50 feet across the board.
Yeah, and the 50 is my second issue. It's really that specific, how close, I mean, because if you look at the, whatever drawings, it's right on the line. And I feel like if you're living in that unit, say where the 68 is, You're the person that gets the barbecue.
The one, yeah, next to it, that's.
Yeah. And, you know,
To be fair though, too, I feel it's always hard on this, that when they bought those units, this lot was destined to have something built on it. It wasn't like this was like open space that we've condemned and are now building something on. So I always feel there's that like catch-22 of,
well,
you know.
Ryan, you of all people should realize that's 2 more cars on the road, and you're telling me that
Buddy, I
32
just
cars traffic cruising around here.
Buddy, I tell you, I'm happy to draw a line and cut those spaces off.
Let's knock them out.
I think that's totally fine. I think it helps.
I think we've got
Kansas
some
fight, and,
agreement, yeah.
You know, I feel a little bad for the people in the building, but truth be told, like, my problem would be the other side on the entrance of going through the rugby field parking, because you're not, the entrance to the second staging area of fire, that's not like an access, right? That's just fire access.
Correct. This is just fire
And
access.
so that was always my concern on this design, was that you only have technically, well, you have the egress outgress through the parking lot of the rugby field. Besides probably 2 lacrosse seasons, spring and fall, and a handful of other practices, it doesn't get a ton of use, but when it is used, it is jam-packed. Guys are parking up, I'm parking up on the curb, like, so that's my only concern at these super high traffic times. Having that as your entrance through a public parking lot is just a little bit, I don't know, can we add a curb cut? Can you take out, you know?
Can you put a barrier there?
Yeah, and put a curb cut entrance in there and eliminate one more parking spot? I know we're taking out a tree, sorry, Chris. I know you love the trees. But I just wonder, like, was that ever viewed, or is it just easier to say, hey, coming through that curb cut's just the way to be?
So during schematic design, during sketch plan, prior to coming in for sketch plan review, we reviewed a huge number of access options for this, from fully cutting it off from the rugby field, just coming in one side and coming out one side. So yeah, we did review a pretty big number of options to get in and out of the site. And we settled on this one as the one that has the least impact on traffic on Valley Road, because you're using existing curb cut, which is a significant distance from our new curb cut, as opposed to kind of stacking multiple curb cuts right here. So you've got one here, and then you'd have, potentially another one here. And then dealing with the radii coming in here. So you can see that we have a really big radius coming in here. To add an additional curb cut here and get the radius, we actually lose like a fair number of parking spots, because you have to get a correct radius coming in and out of this parking area if you're going to fully cut it off from the rugby parking lot. So it lost, it was pretty inefficient from an already super tight site, right? We decided it was a pretty inefficient use of additional space to get this extra curb cut and radius in. And that is why the decision was made to just utilize the existing curb cut. And Jay, feel free to jump in with anything that I didn't mention there, because you did a lot of those studies.
And I think there was a bit of a hope that the guest parking spaces that were on the north side of the building could also, when they're not being used by guests, also be used by park users, especially when you have larger events there, so
That was going to be my question, if we can just load that side with guest parking spots, like all the guest parking spots go on that side.
Are those guest parking spots, or are those designated for the building?
So we do not yet have a plan of what's going to be guest versus what's going to be designated for residents. So that level in the parking has not been completed. The only thing that is, for certain in the parking at this point is that the fire department has stated, or sorry, the post office has stated that this parking spot right here in particular has to be designated for postal employees between the hours of, I think, 10 and 5 or something. So that will be a guest spot, unavailable to anyone during the regular postal delivery day. Outside of that, we haven't had the conversation of what's going to be guest parking, what's going to be designated parking, and where we will eventually designate for our electric car charger parking.
And those are challenging now with new codes coming out. We can see the new water main sizes that are required to fight the fires of the electric battery fires. It's like doubling the size of water mains going into projects. So the fire department would prefer that we put electric vehicle charging outside of the building, not underneath of it, because otherwise we have to upsize our whole sprinkler system.
So then, sorry, another question. So those parking lots belong to that building. I mean, and if it could be guest parking, could be whatever. Like, do we even need those bump outs in the middle to designate, like, hey, here's the sign for the building, and can those just be parking spots?
Yeah, so let me go back
To me, it looks like maybe 2 on the roadside and 1 on the interior curb side. Like, do we need that?
I would like to add in on this, just keep in mind that, this is an existing parking lot that we can potentially utilize and really not have to change much to maintain. So, yes, we can do alterations to it, but, of course, again, we're talking about minimizing costs to keep this as affordable as possible, as well as, the impacts environmentally of additional concrete and asphalt. So the more that we can maintain the existing, our intent was to keep it as minimal as possible.
Sorry, I understand that, but if you drive by there when it is jamming, those extra spots would be pretty darn useful. It probably can't be ridiculous to put spots in that space and then to give, I don't know, I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill. Those spots should be parking. Down below, we should retreat a little bit just to be neighborly, and that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah. And I think you guys are pushing back on something that's pretty easy to accomplish. And, I think we have to take into consideration that most of the use of that field is in the evenings, and it's packed to the point where people are parking on the grass on Willets Lane. So if there's a delay in developing off-site parking spaces in exchange for parking spaces that are being developed for use of the residents, then that's got to happen at the same time. Because, we see it, and Ryan sees it. We have, and you heard a presentation from the rec department on the growth of these programs we're putting on, and it's the same with other programs that aren't town of Basalt. That field is becoming a significant asset to the whole community as far as recreation. The other thing is a pet peeve, but that field with the rugby post is not dimensionally correct for a full-size soccer or lacrosse field. So I've had a number of requests from the lacrosse community and the soccer guys to move those posts back so we can get a full field in there, which those happened under a Holy Cross community partnership thing, and it was a little bit of a issue for at the time. And this rugby field, it's the Willets field. It's designed to be a multi-purpose field. There was an issue with a perceived covenant a while ago that the field was restricted to rugby only. And, we managed through that, but there's still this perception that that's out there. So I think, a couple things like that off-site would help. That corridor along the parallels the field is absolutely packed, and for whatever reason, the striping that happened out there does not allow for a car to park unless it's in the lane. So those off-site things that the rest of the community would be looking for, you got to go out of your site boundaries a little bit and solve those, or at least address them.
Because isn't that town property anyways?
What'd you say?
Isn't that whole parking lot the town's anyways?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, we're like, you're gonna have so much equipment here that adding 2 spots is like a very low hanging fruit on this, if we're taking out those other 2 that Skeeter
You know,
wants
that,
to.
just, the existing storage is gonna be where the new dumpster post office buildings are, and that's a pretty functional space, and hopefully Public Works is gonna be able to absorb that someplace else, cause that's a pretty busy location as well. So, and, you know, the mixed parking model, you know, during the day and evening, this is gonna be complicated because the guests are gonna be there in the evening and the activities are gonna be there in the evening. So we're not gonna see that resident, people are gone during the day and back at night, it's gonna be all day, all night, all weekend, all that stuff. No, I think those are pretty simple asks.
I would say any safety features that you can add to the parking, because it is so busy there in the evenings with, I mean, they're little kids, and they're running around, and now there's going to be more cars. It feels crazy to me, but if that's the way it's got to be, there must be a way to make it safer. So I would say anything that you could do as far as signage or something. And my second question is, was a height variance given to this building for the extra units? I can't remember.
No. No, it's the same height as the other buildings. The only thing we changed was that they were gonna step it down as it came to the lake, and I said not to. Everyone agreed, supposedly. Supposedly, I don't know. Everyone's placing the blame on me. I just want more and less all at the same time, guys. Come on.
Duality,
I'm just an American. What do you want from me?
Locke recommended the 2 extra units as well, so
Yeah,
you're not
I'm
alone.
gonna talk out of both sides of my mouth. That's the way a politician is.
Well, P and Z and Bach asked for the same thing.
Yeah, they're all smart, see? Let's go.
But why didn't you originally have those 2 units in the original design?
So in the original design, we did omit those 2 units because we knew that was the point at which we were closest to our neighbors. And so their living spaces and their main decks are on that 2nd floor. And we wanted to minimize the feeling of proximity of our building to their building by eliminating the 3rd floor where we were closest.
It was a nice
So we
gesture.
were still the same distance, but we were trying to minimize the feeling of that distance by reducing the height of the building at that location.
An architecture trick.
We're full of tricks.
But it is
Tricks
two,
the eye.
it's 2 families, so it's substantial. So you guys would prefer that we added 2 spaces up on the northern lot and then reduce 1 space on the southern portion?
Reduce the 2, or
I would say get what you can out of the top and then reduce 2 at the bottom.
Reduce 2 at the bottom, okay.
Just extend that landscaping, that's how I see it, as you just come into those parking spots with the, yeah, exactly.
Well, and the interesting thing too is if that's how that is already, there's really no parking on that side of the building for the building. The building's parked underneath, and then there's only 1 more spot.
You nailed it
Yeah.
with that drawing.
That actually that may work for the radius coming in off of Willets Lane too for the fire truck.
And so it's,
Which
Yeah,
you
I
could
think
also end up,
that works for me. I'm happy to get a motion, unless we want to keep talking about this.
Let's do it.
No, but
Just-
I also think that this is a really nice
I think it's a great point.
point and compromise to go back to the community with, you know? And it to say, look, we did everything we could to move the building, couldn't move the building, but here's what we can do.
I think it's
I
fair.
think that's a really nice
would that,
gesture.
let me ask a dumb question then, would that change, could you move the access for the fire department to that location since you created that curvature there and they can pull in and swing around and go out?
To this southern part of the building?
Right where you just drew the green
Well, it
space
was
and
always
the orange
there,
line?
really.
And then if you went out and did a curb cut directly into that new space that you just created and eliminated the curb cut up there across from the post office,
No, you have to, they
There
need a
isn't
curb
a
cut on
curb
both
cut.
sides. That's just fire access.
This is like a mountable curb. They need access to this side of the building as well as this side of the building, so we couldn't
They want
eliminate.
both accesses?
Yeah.
They want 4 sides, we gave them 3.
Yeah. We
Since
didn't,
they're
we
pushing
didn't
the
put any
smaller
drive
fire
aisles on this side, but we're trying to get them as close to this side as we can on these 2 sides, and so we didn't have to like pave all the way around the building.
This gets them close enough for the ladder trucks and then the hoses to reach around safely.
Yeah, so unfortunately, even if we expanded fire access on the south side, we would still need it on the north side.
So just to summarize, I think where I've heard, I think it sounds like there could be a motion to approve resolution number 55 with the condition that the final plan reflect that 2 parking spaces on the southern parking area adjacent to the lakeside townhomes be removed, and that there be additional landscaping in that area. I think that's the main condition. There's also been some discussion about parcel 8A to the north, which is separate from what's being entitled here, where the town could explore adding some additional parking spaces.
Which could be addressed at a different time.
Right. It doesn't need to be part of,
appropriate for this amendment.
it doesn't have to be part of it, yeah.
Yeah, so, just.
Mayor?
Just ask about more,
Yeah.
sorry, Hannah, go ahead.
Oh, I was
She was
gonna
gonna-
motion, so.
Better ask your question.
So
Shows
there's
the
now
time.
3 access points into that parking lot.
2 for normal people and 2 for fire truck.
1 for normal people now to enter the parking lot. 1 for the fire truck in that location and 1 where you just drew it that way. So there's 3 access points.
So those are normal people access points,
Yeah.
and these are fire truck access points.
So why isn't the normal person access point coming from the north end? Can't that be used by the fire department?
They cannot back the truck out that distance, no. So right now, the fire truck can pull in here, be right here, and then back right on out. And the same here. So the fire truck can pull in here, be right here, and back right on out. But it's craziness. That's what the fire truck is gonna do.
We've lost control. That looks like a referral agency document.
But if the fire truck came in through this upper parking area and got down here, it would need to then somehow get out, which means we would need a big radius. Like, see this big weird radius? That's a fire truck radius. So we need a big weird radius to get them out right here, thereby further reducing parking right here. Because they can't back this distance. Apparently backing a fire truck's a whole thing. I've never tried, but the fire department tells me.
Little ones are easier than the hook and ladders, that's for sure. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Mayor, I move that the town council adopt resolution number 55, series of 2025, with the condition that the final plan includes that the 2 adjacent parking spots are removed and replaced with landscaping
In the southern parking lot.
in the southern parking lot.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Pam, please call the roll.
Absolutely. Let's begin with Ryan Slack,
Yes.
Dieter Schindler,
Yes.
Hannah Berman,
Yes.
Angela Anderson,
Yes.
Rick Stevens,
Yes.
Angel Dupré-Bouchard.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Discussion,
you.
guys.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's great.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, 7C, resolution number 56, series of 2025, resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, approving the fuels mitigation project and approving a contract with Summit Forest, Inc., and approving an agreement for reimbursement of project expenses. Justin and Chris, thank you for your patience. Sorry to lose complete of time.
You know, the fire truck's just gonna drive across the rugby field.
You don't want to get into it.
Oh, dude, Chris moving up in the world.
The house that I'm building up here, like,
Thanks.
literally
Just wait until you hear this presentation.
Well, thank you, council. Again, we're here for Resolution 56 on the fuels mitigation construction contract with Summit Forest Incorporated, as well as a cost-sharing agreement with the project with Colorado Parks and Wildlife and Wilds HOA. Before we kind of talk about the contract, I think it's important that Chris speaks a little bit to the brief history that's happened over the last couple years and how we got to this point.
Thank you, Justin. Yeah, so I'm Chris, the arborist. You heard me cringing about the tree comment earlier. I know a lot of this history is probably familiar to all of you. I do kind of want to go back to, this all kind of started with the 2018 Lake Christine fire. Obviously a heightened awareness and need to be proactive about our fire mitigation in this town. We've annually put monies toward this. We've kind of done a patchwork of projects around town, including places like Ponderosa Trail we've spent several years on. We've worked on this hillside outside of Town Hall here, some smaller defensible spaces around our critical infrastructure. But I have since been meeting with a lot of residents throughout this work. There's been kind of a thirst or an appetite for a more kind of macro, large-scale image of what we're working on this mountain. Particularly, I met with some residents in 2023 up on Ridge Road. It just so happened to be, if you look at this image, it's a little hard to read, but between where parcels 1 and 13 actually run into each other, where that town of Basalt is, that is actually a property line between our Wilds dedication open space and state wildlife area. So we stood in their backyard. We were looking at a lot of, overgrown brush areas, as well as a lot of dead trees as a result of Ips beetle really moving into the area since that fire. A lot of drought stress has allowed that insect to move in and wipe out a good percentage of our native pinyon pines. And we talked about potential ways to fix that, and immediately it became obviously that despite anything the town could do, I'm looking at a random arbitrary fence that cuts half of the land in half, and I can't do anything on the other side. So with that, we actually engaged with the Colorado State Forestry Service. You've met Matthew Mastelier. He came in about a year and a half ago to do an initial presentation on this project. We contracted them in late 2024 to come up with a scope for us to work with to kind of try to tackle the remainder of what is live on Basalt Mountain. So what you see on the TV there is our final scope. It's divided into 16 different parcels that encompass just under 52 acres of land. We are proposing to do prescription thinning to all of this land that you see highlighted on there. This is a pretty big project considering how many players are involved in this. That was probably the single most difficult part of all this, to get all of the different players at the table and in agreement with what type of work needs to be done, as well as scope and the financial side especially. So we are actually looking at a mixture of land owned by Town of Basalt, CPW, the State Wildlife Area, the Wilds HOA, which you can see mostly in that purple, but there is a small parcel to the west of the area that they also own next to our open space. And then Holy Cross actually has quite a large easement through here, as well as through the backyards of a lot of private properties along Ridge Road. So we came up with this kind of scope here. We've got 3 major prescriptions that we're considering, the majority of which is actually thinning. We're talking about producing a space of between 20 to 25 feet between individual canopies, both individual large specimen trees as well as clusters of a range of trees. We've advocated to actually go in and select a range of both species as well as size and age of trees. Typically in these sorts of thinning projects, it's a pretty quick, fast and dirty project. We've asked them to actually go in and think about longevity as far as that forest health, so that we have those future trees coming in to replace some of these older mature trees that are obviously the ones everybody loves and cares about. We have identified a small parcel, I believe that's number 3, the green area, for ecological restoration. If you went and looked at that out in the field, you've actually got relatively low pinyon juniper canopy cover. So we're actually going to return that back to the historically native sagebrush land to encourage native grouse floration there. And then we do have a small area, that purple space around the Wilds HOA, that's designated for what we call defensible space thinning. it's thinning plus a little bit more nuance to make sure we're getting minimum distances from building structures, things like that. For this project, because of the topography, we actually can't even get chippers into most of these areas. We're looking at 15+% grades in a lot of these spaces. So we are actually proposing that we're going to cut and then pile all of the slash that we create. Those piles will be staying there for approximately 2 years while they dry out. So the fire department will help us with monitoring when they're ready to burn. And then they will be on site in about 2 years to help with that process. We have specifically asked that those piles be pushed as far away from residences as we can. And we've been pretty transparent with the residents up there as this has been kind of developing to make sure they're aware of the expectations with this project. The timeline for this, with this contract coming up, we actually just got word today they would like to start as soon as Monday of next week. So we're talking they want to mobilize quickly. It's a couple of reasons why. One, we've got weather on our side for this particular project. As much as I don't like to say there's no snow outside, that helps with this project because things tend to come to a standstill on these when we do have too much snow cover. They are expecting this will take about 2 to 3 weeks. They estimated they'd be done before Thanksgiving. I'm thinking before the end of the first week of December for giving us a little bit of cushion there. We are proposing they will work during the times that our noise ordinance allows, so that would be Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to about dusk, which is about 4 or 5 p.m. right about now. And then they will, if they do extend past Thanksgiving, they'll obviously not work during the holiday date. They have proposed that they're going to start at the north end of this map in the areas that are designated as our state wildlife areas, because those do technically close at a certain point here for the annual migration. So we want to be sensitive to that, and we want to get that area done and moving then closer to some of these residences as we move down the mountain. The only other thing to really point out on this map, it's a little hard to see, but there are 4 designated staging areas for the crews. There's 2 that are up on Pinion Drive. They'll be more or less away on the other side of the road from all the residences. There is 1 that is at the Hillside Trailhead because that is the only southern access point that we have that entire wild area. And then there is a 4th space that the Wilds HOA, with them being in collaboration with this whole project, is allowing us to use at the far end of Promontory Lane.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. A lot of history power packed in there. Just want to speak a little bit about the RFP process. So we did work with Matt there at the Forest Service. We did receive 3 formal bids, and it was actually a unanimous decision between town staff, CPW, Holy Cross, the Wilds, the Forest Service in awarding this contract to Summit Forest Incorporated. They have a ton of experience in the western United States with these similar type and larger scale fuels mitigation projects. And notably, they had a ton of experience in Colorado, Dillon, Silverthorne, Longmont, Estes Park, Canyon City, Eagle, Fort Collins, and Woodland Park. So, a lot of areas that are very similar to what we're tackling here. And from a funding perspective, we can fund this project within the 2025 Open Space and Trails Capital Fund. Summit Force's contract total is for $103,927. But what's great about this is another piece of this history is we applied for a grant with the Colorado State Forest Service, and we're going to receive up to $88,500 for this project. And that's the other portion of this resolution is we've been working with Jeff behind the scenes to get a 3-way agreement with the Wilds, HOA, and CPW to offset costs in those units 7 through 14. Holy Cross Energy is actually going to pay for the work in units 15 and 16. So a lot of economies of scale here, a lot of partners working together, a lot of fluid parts coming together all at once. So we think it's going to be a great project. The only remaining thing that we need to procure as part of this project is erosion control. And so we'll work together, Chris and I and part of the team, December, January, to get those erosion control measures scoped out and put together once we see what falls on the ground, and we fully anticipate that we can fund this entire project with what is within the budget today.
Cool.
So with that, I think Chris is, we're working on a PSA to release before the end of this weekend. We're working with Mitzi, but we're happy to entertain any questions you have. But we're really excited for this project and what we can do really at a large scale, and hoping that this can be, a blueprint for the future.
Well, I think that's awesome, and I didn't hear the Roaring Fork Valley Fire Collaborative mentioned it's being, done with Angie Davlin and those guys from the Institute, but they should be in the loop on this. And, we just did some stuff up there at the Meadows and in the adjacent riparian. We were kind of going on at the same time, and they got a lot of publicity out of this big demonstration project, Valentine and all those guys. And I think that Basalt taking this on is a remarkable feather in your cap, and doing it at our expense is even a bigger feather. And getting partners drawn in there is huge. And maybe while those guys are here, they could take a look at some of our riparian corridors and just maybe plan for a haircut in some of those areas, because that we're finding out that those are just as significant as some of this upland terrain
absolutely.
stuff is.
Yeah, as Justin mentioned, this is kind of our first real big project with fire mitigation. We have every intention to use this as a bit of a template to apply to other areas. Hearing that riparian comment, that's a great area to look at. There's obviously other parts of Basalt Mountain that's not, shown on this map further east over by Hillcrest and Original Road. That would be potential other areas. It gets, some of the other areas we had looked at early on, they're a little more complicated land ownership wise. There's also a little bit more pushback from the residents in those particular areas to do anything like this. We've had a lot of residents on Ridge Road especially, but also Pinion Drive. We've had the Bassburg residents. They've separately pursued a fire mitigation project as a result of us going after this.
That's one of the Howard Freeman, if you've been talking
Yep.
to him, yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Bullseye.
And Rick, just to clarify, Angie and the Roaring Fork Collaborative, they have been a part of this process. They weren't part of the formal adoption, but they've been very plugged into these meetings.
Cool.
So
Yeah,
they're
good.
well aware of this and been great partners as well.
Will this thinning look like basically what's around the water treatment facility? If you kind
Yeah.
of walk up that path, you can really, if anyone wants to see what it's gonna look like.
Yeah.
It's what you did last year, right? You went
Yes,
in
that was completed in January, actually, of this year. It was snowed out in December last year. But that was the intention of that work, was to show a demonstration plot of what particularly the thinning prescription, which is the majority of the areas, will look like. It is fire mitigation work at the end of the day. It's not, we're going in there and thinking about every little individual branch we're taking off. It's big macro, kind of looking at the large scale of it. But I think if you go look at that area 1 year later, it looks like we were never really even in there beyond the fact that it's thinner.
It looks great.
Yeah, great job getting this done. It's a big lift to work with all of those individual entities and get everybody on the same page. Also, well done on getting the grant money, and I just can't believe, to be honest, that we're able to accomplish this for $100,000. I've been involved in some private fire mitigation projects on private land that's an excellent price, in my opinion, for handwork and not being able to get,
And with our 3 bids, we had actually quite a wide range of proposed costs of this. This one sat in the middle, and it was also by far the most experienced crew that had brought in a quote. They did tell me there's going to be a crew of 28 people doing this work. So,
which again, 28 people over 3 weeks of manual labor, that's...
Yeah, I think we're really benefiting from that economy of scale with this one.
Mm-hmm.
Great price,
Burn.
great
Yeah.
collaboration, and they can start Monday. When does that happen in government? That's amazing.
They wanted to start Friday, and I said I need more time to give
I
residents
love
a heads
it.
up.
I love it. Can I make a motion? We have
Yeah,
more
I just
questions?
wanted
Yeah.
one last comment of just a great collaboration. I mean, it's the dream of public-private partnership that we all want, and so thank you guys for spearheading it and dealing with all those people. It's just awesome.
Yeah, bravo.
And I should point out, I forgot to mention, that area with the Holy Cross, they have their easement. Colorado State Forestry has actually obtained agreements with all of those residents that back up to that area, agreeing to this work, so they're all well involved in that, because that easement does fall into some of that private property down there.
Yeah. Mayor, I move that the town council adopt resolution number 56, series of 2025.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Pam, please call the roll.
Absolutely. Let's begin with Dieter Schindler.
Yes.
Anna Berman.
Yes.
Angela Anderson.
Yes.
Rick Stevens.
Yep.
Angel Dupré-Bouchard.
Yes.
Ryan Slack.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Nice work.
Thanks,
Thank
Justin.
y'all.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Chris, for, I've seen Chris decorating trees.
They look
all
so
over town,
good.
taking care of.
Just wait till I flip the switch in a week or so here.
It's awesome.
There's a couple of surprises I haven't told anyone.
Ooh, nice.
Driving around with a truck full of just like light up
It's glorious.
globes. Every time I see him, he's on another tree. I'm like,
It's like a little monkey up there.
he's nonstop.
Go to the packet, yeah. It's open. We had to go through. So you gotta go back.
Give it to us, Doug. Yep. We're about to get back on schedule just an hour later.
Start giving it timer.
And one person who just did it.
Fall back one more time.
Oh, damn it. I didn't go to the third page.
Yeah, but it's literally budget. It's Doug. So let's like, come on, Doug.
I've had my moments,
We've
don't
all
worry.
seen the budget. We all.
Yeah. Slide through this.
I'll entertain a
Jeff's
motion.
done with us.
We're gonna do
We believe in you, Doug.
Second reading of the ordinance, is this
E,
going
E,
to
and
be
F all together.
for the 2025 budget? So,
It's purple.
let's call it up here. Presented this last week. Go to the next, can you go to the, here we go, there we go, okay. So, let's just go through this. Some people listening may be hearing this for the first time, so I'll just go through it quickly. I'll be pointing to, for people in the room, the pointer. I know people are in the, at home or watching this later, won't be able to see it, so Jenny will be pointing to where I'm pointing. So the original budget that was adopted a year or so ago had the general fund having a use of funds of $390, $146. That was net of revenue. A restricted fund also had a use of funds of $709. Construction funds was also use of funds of $2.3. So really, the budget presented was showing expenditures in excess of revenue of $3.445 million. We amended it in the spring when we had okayed $500,000 for the mobile home park. We again amended that in August of 2025 for the second payment, increasing the subsidy for the mobile home park to $600,000. So really where we were sitting here right around Labor Day was a budget, approved budget of about a use of funds of slightly over $4 million. So where we are now, this is Amendment 3, this is what we're meeting right now. I have detailed all of the elements of revenue, and I'm going, all these are captions or all these domains. I'm talking about revenue being 1, personnel being 2, operating being 3, capital being 4. When we do the budget, I have debt service being the 5th domain. So on the first domain, we have revenue. We did increase revenue in the general fund by $445. The big contributors of that are shown in Exhibit B. You don't need to flip to that, Jenny, but really it was taking down sales tax a tad and increasing building permits, and also interest was a contributing factor in increasing revenue. Rita's had a big uptick, a lot of transactions going over on Willits this year. In our construction fund, I had a true up on our Inflation Reduction Act credit that we had filed for the solar roofs we installed. And then we also had tap fees being increased. Really was a timing difference for the tap fees relating to the Midland being installed. We were expecting that revenue in '24 hit in 2025. So all in all, we took up revenue by just slightly under $2 million. I've been talking about vacancy savings. I'm combing out $375,000 of vacancy savings. There's likely more than that at the end of the day, but right now, I'm not getting too, I mean, we still have some time to go between now and the end of the year, so I'm not combing all of it out, but I'm anticipating more at the end of the year. Operating expenses increased somewhat relative to the budget. And again, all of this is detailed in Exhibit B, you'll see. A lot of the expenses were, I mean, the big ticket items were, since the revenue was higher because of the Ritas and Willets, our revenue share with TACA went up. So we share with TACA half of that revenue. So a big chunk of our operating expenses in restricted fund related to that. Actually in the operating fund, we had increases in really quite a few areas. Legal was one, litigation expenses was another, our insurance was higher as well. So anyway, the net across the board, we increased expenses by 661, and then we had offset that increase by unspent capital across the board of 891. So at the end of the day, this amendment is reflecting a net change to the general fund, positive change of 878, positive change to restricted fund of $1.8 million, and then some smaller amounts across the board. So at the end of the day, we were, like say Labor Day, we were sitting around $4 million. Right now, I'm taking 2.6 as savings or reduction of expenditures, or rather increased revenue, net of a $2.6 million change. So we're sitting at an amended budget. These are the components, but of basically 1.4 million compared to what we started with was 3.4 that increased to 4. So right now, we're actually in a pretty good spot. And I'm actually thinking, to be honest with you guys, I think that this negative won't be negative after all. It will actually be positive. More revenue than expenses.
Okay.
So that's what.
So that red reflects, we're gonna take 1.4 million out of, we're down 1.4 currently.
That would be what the
year.
consolidated budget would show, 1.4 million.
And we thought we were gonna be at 3.4.
Correct.
So we're
So an overall improvement of
Looking
2
pretty
million.
3 million, yeah, you're kicking butt is what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah,
Just making sure, because I was like, I thought red's bad, but.
yeah.
Well, that red is a lot better than the
Then that red,
original.
yeah, okay, that's what it was.
Right. And, you know, and right here, the construction fund, I mean, we should be spending down our money. That was bond money, so we should be spending that. So it just shows you the health of the town's finances are still in a pretty good shape.
$2 million, that's
So-
pretty good.
So I don't know, any questions right now? I can go through all the detail. Rick, you have anything you want to?
No, I was gonna move to adopt ordinance 19.
There's a
Yeah.
public, there's a
Oh,
public meeting.
sorry.
Thank
This
you,
is a public
staff.
hearing. It is currently 8:47, and I will open the public hearing. Seeing no one in the public, and I don't think Gloria wants to comment. We'll take a comment, Gloria, if you want. Okay, no. I will close the public hearing at, again, 8:47. And now I'll entertain a motion.
Now it's your time to shine, Rick.
Motion to approve ordinance 19, series of 25 on second reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Pam, please call the roll.
Happily, thank you. Let us begin with Angela Anderson. Yes. Yes, thank you, Angela, sorry. Dieter Schindler,
Yes.
Anna Berman,
Yes.
Rick Stevens,
Yeah.
Angel Dupré-Bouchard,
Yes.
and Ryan Slack.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously, thank you.
Okay, 7E, public hearing, Resolution number 57, series of 2025, resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, adopting the annual budget for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2026, and ending December 31st, 2026, and summarizing expenditures and revenues for each fund. Once again, Doug.
There you go, thank you, Ryan, Mayor. So, again, for the people who are listening to this for the first time, I mean, you've been through it several different times, but let's just briefly start with the summary of funds, and then I'm going to stick with the domains being revenue, personnel costs, operating, capital, and debt service is the principal, and then, those being the domains that we've been talking about. And then I'll speak to what the changes are now, what the final budget is, what was relative to the proposed. So, just looking at revenue for the general fund, we're showing, Jenny, you get the, here we go, thank you. So we got the taxes of 9.8, that's essentially our sales taxes and our property taxes. Property taxes are budgeted at a higher amount due to the reassessment we're having this year. It's up about 8%. Sales tax is flat. Moving down the line here, licenses, permits, and fees. Included in that number is intergovernmental revenue, and that is essentially the CDOT grant and our RAFTA cost reimbursement for Basalt Connect. Those are principal items. Also to note, in the other financing number, 2.380, this is financing that is going to be required to fund the acquisition of the 6 units across the street that are being assembled, called the Midland. And we're going to fund that by taking money from the restricted funds. So we're seeing a negative here in the restricted funds. We're just moving money from the restricted to capital, to the general fund, so that that can then be used to fund the purchase of those units. Looking at this other revenue here, taxes in the restricted revenue is post. For every dollar of trade coming through the town, 2 pennies goes to the general fund, 1 penny goes to the restricted fund, and within the restricted fund, we carve off 20% of that for maintenance of the parks and open trail space and trails. Included also in taxes is our tobacco tax and our lodging tax. I did not budget an increase in lodging tax by reason of the ballot initiative that did successfully pass. So there will be a corresponding increase in revenue, but likely also be offset by increased expenses for some affordable housing initiatives that council's contemplating. So net margin to the town won't be positive, it'll just be money in, money out. This 1798 is all pretty much our RETAs that we have, and other impact funds that are generating revenue. This is the money that I just talked about with restricted fund moving over to the general fund to pay for the Midland. There's some smaller numbers here. I'll speak more about the water fund. We get to capital. The bond fund at the final trail here, this is the mill levy as we get money from Pitkin County, Eagle County for the mill levy. Portion of it goes to general fund, portion of it goes to the bond fund. The portion that goes to the bond fund services the debt that we have that was incurred when we issued the taxable bonds and the tax exempt bonds in 2021. So it's pretty much a push on the net equity of the fund. So our revenue, so the big change here between what I originally showed to what I'm showing now is that when I presented this initially, I had included, this is my error, the total amount of the CDOT grant as revenue, which included the town's portion of the match, which was like 20%. So I had overstated revenue by about 140,000. So I dialed that back in this final presentation. That was the only change to revenue that I had between what was originally proposed to what I'm proposing now. So any questions on revenue before we move on to payroll, personnel? All right, hearing none. So let's just go to personnel. You get the cheat sheet on that, Jenny? So I think that the main thing here, this is all payroll for the general fund, the restricted fund, and the water fund. And it also includes our vacant positions. There's quite a few vacant positions that we have in the police department that are represented in that $6.4 million. No change between the proposed budget and the final. Head count is essentially flat. It's up one, net one. We did get a COLA increase for the staff at 3% across the board. And you'll see the head count here is 52 versus 51. We did add one person in the water department. You'll see that we took that up. Justin felt in the distribution of the water area, we needed to add one. So really, that's what it was. I think that was a smart add since it's thin group of people. You think the recreation department is thin, the water department's thin too. And so anyway, head count is up one. The vacancies are still here. There's about how was that, 5? I thought it was like 550 or so in vacancies. We've already got, we're not gonna fill all these vacancies come 1/1, so we've already got some vacancy savings baked into this budget. We could have deferred some of those ads to like first quarter, but we didn't. So there's a little bit of cushion built into this budget already. The big driver on increase in personnel costs is our fringe. Our health insurance went up 16%. Actually, I'm sorry, misspoke, 13.5%. And big driver of our increase year over year. So, and then, just closing out, we still have our percentage of personnel costs relative to the general fund revenue. Recurring revenue is still, it's less than 50, it's like 48%. So we're right gravitating between 45 and 50. Some people think that's overly conservative, but, if we do have a downturn coming, airport closes 2027, we have some downturn in the economy, revenue starts going south, it gives us a little bit of a cushion to not immediately have to have staff reductions to make budget. So it's tended to be a conservative number. So.
This is a really quick question. On that acceleration of cost, that scale, 5 years down the road, it almost doubles, right? So like, or is it like 8 years?
Well, 12% would double in 6.
Yeah. So it's like, well, where do we account for that down the road? Or does it just start consuming?
Well, you account for it by not hiring as many people, doing things more efficiently, like talked about, like paper forms, having more automation into the process. You account for it by increasing the share that the employee shares in the cost of health insurance. Right now, it's very nominal. It's like 15%. So the cost share would be higher. You would increase deductibles. You would increase co-pays. There's ways to manage the increase. I would say that, this is like, my third year being here. This is the first year we've seen that double-digit increase. We did have a year, actually, where we were flat to down. I think in general, the CEDAT is good insurance. It's the Colorado Benefit Employment Trust. But I do think that there's aging demographics that are contributing to the increases. And also the headcount is something to bear in mind. We're a small group because we're under 50. If we get to have more full-time people over 50, we're not a small group anymore. It changes our whole risk profile.
Up or down?
Probably not in a good way.
Ooh.
Probably not in a good way. Because we're on the lower end of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
So just something to bear in mind. I'm not far in trouble, but.
Time is our enemy.
When you say we're a small group, that includes us being hired like we should be, though.
Yeah, I think a small group is less than 50. Higher group, I think it's 50 to 250. You have a greater population, but we're on the lower end. If you were in that larger group, you'd be like a medium group, you would have a different risk profile.
Sorry,
Yeah.
that number scares me when we were talking about in the other meeting too, and just.
What's that?
Just the accelerating costs of everything, and.
Well, it's.
Where do we make up for it on the?
And how does a town make up for something that seems broken structurally at like a very large scale?
Health insurance. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Like the increasing cost to that degree of health insurance?
Yeah.
that, and when we talk about something for 5 or 6 years, you know, to actually get to the point of implementation, you have to rack up those costs on the staff level. That's not checking the boxes, you know, maybe as quickly as we could in the short term. So we have other fees we get reimbursed for from the development community and so on, and
You can also
sometimes
outsource. I mean, I know like
it's
a
just
lot of the,
outsourced consultants,
a lot of what
rebuilding, yeah.
Matt does, he has a lot of people, he has contractors. So we have, there's, yeah, the revenue's higher, but the revenue doesn't scale because your margin stays 15%. So, I mean, there's some operating scale to it, but I mean, it's a challenge. It's a challenge because, I mean, the revenue, I just don't see the revenue being a hockey stick. It's not going to increase as much as our expenses. So we need to be mindful of operating expenses, capital, personnel. We have to be a disciplined group. And I think for the most part, we have been keeping that personnel cost as a percentage of the general fund revenue. So that's the second domain. So the third domain is operating. Now, these are all your departments. These are your executive, administrative, legislative, planning, streets, public works, police. Our big expenditures in this area, you know, legislative is green team, you know, our events are, in the current year, we had the mobile home purchase. And within the administrative category, we have our legal fees, we have our CIRSA insurance. We talked about the insurance being influenced by all the claims that are being processed for law enforcement under Front Range. That's affecting us. There's also the departments of the buildings. We have this 2025 is our last payment on the final COP for the umbrella building. So there's less expense associated with that. But if you remember, I took all that money, the less expense, and I've actually put in capital, so we're not spending it elsewhere. We're using that money for the police public works station. Another thing in the expenses bears mentioning is that we had increase in parking. I did get improvement in that number. I was looking for a 50% improvement in the number, which is like 50% less, but I only got like a third less. So I got some improvement, but not everything I wanted. So that will be coming to the town for resolution to approve that agreement for 2026. The other thing in the just note of operating expenses is that in the police department, we have cost share with Pitkin County or in dispatch, and the dispatch services is a high escalating cost. I think it's even higher than what health insurance is. So that number is escalating, and it's consuming quite a bit of our revenue share that we get from Pitkin County on sales tax. And it's like 2/3 of our revenue on sales tax is going for the dispatch. So that's something I'll be speaking with Gloria about, kind of strategizing on how we can improve that number for the benefit of the town, or at least slow the escalation, or look for alternatives. That would be my thought, you know. And then also in public gardens, you know, we've got more of a footprint. Stotts Mill is being developed. That is coming off warranty, so all of that will now be our cost to carry. So we'll be having expenses associated with maintaining that lot. So there is, as we increase our footprint, there's attendant costs associated with that. So that's kind of the highlights on operating. I did make an improvement. I did eliminate, the mayor wanted to, not the mayor pro tem, actually Mayor pro tem did too, eliminated the e-bike rebates.
The other guy.
And also, we wanted the events to be just cost neutral. Whatever revenue it is we were generating, we were going to have that be offsetting expenses. So I had that be revenue neutral. And I also took into account the savings on the parking. So those are the principal changes that I had in operating. I'm going to go capital, really. I should end on capital. I'll just mention debt service recent. That's one of the last domain, but there's no changes to that. There was no changes between the original and the proposed, that I'm proposing now. The big changes are in capital. And let's just go to that one sheet here, Jenny. Not that one. See if we can find it. So I'll just start by saying that most of the change in capital related to our post department. And as I was speaking to all of you individually, and I spoke with the team, I spoke with even Gloria about all of this. And I was coming to the conclusion that years past that the post budget was really a bottom-up approach. There were a lot of things that, you know, Ryan had directed to be in the budget, and you got to thinking about all of the various things we were never actually doing. And this is like the third year I'm looking at some of these things, we never did them. And I was like, okay, well, why don't we just look at this a little differently? So I reversed the paradigm, and I said, well, let's just look at how much revenue we're getting in post. And like I said, okay, so like 2 cents comes in, goes to general fund, 1 cent goes to restricted funds. So if you go, just I guess to stay here for a minute. So you go to the post fund, it really, there's like $3 million coming in. So $3 million comes in, 20% goes off the top to basically pay for the maintenance of the parks. So what do you have left over is 2.4. That's if you just took 80% of $3 million. But the $3 million is actually 3.1. So 3.1, 80%. It really worked out for the budget for a post really should be $2.5 million if we want to only spend what we're taking in. That was the top-down approach. So that's kind of then what we then looked at as far as projects. Now we have the final COP for the Albany Park on deck for 2026. I kind of took that off the board because we have money in the post account. I mean, we're not like the needle isn't empty. We have several $1 million in reserves for the post. But this budget isn't presenting that we just spend that reserve without a discussion. So what we ended up doing is looking at the elements of the post. And I said, okay, what haven't we done that we've said we're going to do and that we're just going to comb out? So I really just took to the post budget and I eliminated a bunch of things like this gun range here. We've had it in here since the last 3 years. So I took that out. Dedications, Mid-Valley, there's just a bunch of other things in here that we weren't doing. But there were 4 things that you see didn't make the cut, that I highlighted in blue, that are at various stages of planning and design. And there is work that needs to be done in Albany Park. There is work that needs to be over here at Basalt River Park. There's some ADA issues, there's some stage issues. Cliffs Hillside, you guys listened to a presentation in August from the Post Committee that talked about the Cliffs Hillside and Durox Park being needed repair, so there was no planning and designing, and they're all various stages of development. But the point is, none of them had contracts as far as what it was actually going to cost to make these things happen, okay? And then what's the priority of them? And does it all have to happen in 2026? Was really kind of the questions. So what I ended up doing was I took them out and I put them over in what I'm calling the parking lot, but the long-range plan is like what's in the parking lot. Well, the Public Works building is in the parking lot. The Soper sign you just heard about, that's in the parking lot. That's not, we don't have the capital stacks formulated to actually execute that quite yet. We have money in here for the 2E design, the Willows Safety construction design. That was Resi 47 this year. There's talk about a Southside Roundabout doing that. And here are all the things I pulled from Post and I put them over here in the parking lot. Now, we can do these, but we would be using the money that we have in reserve. And if you look at what's actually on deck for the, can you go to the Post detail, Jenny? What we're green lighting in post is a lot different than what what happened? Okay. So you'll see that this really is a thinned down list. And really, the big ticket items here is just, if you go down just a little bit, you'll see that the total, voila, just happens to be 2.5 million. All right? And then really, it was because this 323 is this resi we just talked about. We signed off on that. So that money's embargoed. And if you page up a tad, we have Confluence Park for $1.6 million. Now, I'll tell you that this has been developed. This is part of the CDOT grant. We have money in streets for the street work on Two Rivers Road that's being offset by the CDOT grant. Because Confluence Park is really the bridge, and I walked across it today. I was getting my snow tires changed. It's not in great repair. I mean, the concrete's more than Spalding. I mean, there's issues with that bridge. It's just from a layman's point of view. So the original construct, what we were running with, was 1.2 million, and we had $400,000 of money that we did not spend in 2025. We were carrying over to that's how I got to the 1.6. Now, I did learn last week, I think it was like Wednesday or Thursday, that Catherine was working with the team, and their number is more than $1.6 million. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm just telling you, right now, the budget cannot accommodate more than $1.6 million. So it's either something, so a couple different ways to deal with this. Number one, she's the most informed person to speak to the budget. So I'm not going to speak to what the overage is, or I don't know the particulars. I asked her to make a recommendation, so she made a recommendation. So it's either do this. It's either you start spending some of the reserves we have in the restricted account for this project, along with all these other things, or you value engineer the work, defer some of it to 2027, or not do it at all, or do just a slimmed down version of it. So it's to be, I'm just saying this to be determined later, and that contract isn't being presented yet, because I think there needs to be more work and more, and did you want to?
Yeah, I can just clarify a couple quick things. We're breaking the project into two phases, because the phase one did come in a little bit higher, and we've talked, I think, at least at the last 2 or 3 council meetings about what's going on with the bridge. So those prices did go up. So we're breaking the project into 2 projects, into 2 phases. And what we actually just discussed with both of the teams that bid was whether, what the mobilization costs are for doing phase 1 only in 2026 and then doing phase 2 in 2027. If that makes sense, or if we need to try to do it all at once. So that's something we'll be coming back with more detail. So the 1.6 you see up here is representative of, it's actually above the bid that we're going to recommend for phase 1. So I don't want to give that number out because we're working through some value engineering on that one as well, but it's less than 1.6.
Cool. I mean, am I the only one up here that's shocked by that number for bridge work and added crosswalk to the school? And I mean, we're not reinventing the wheel here, right? Like what are the major costs? I know you don't want to go into it because we're still discussing it, but I mean, some serious value engineering should be able to happen on that. It doesn't.
Well, value engineering is kind of a phrase that doesn't have anything to do necessarily with reducing the scope. There's 2 things going on here. There's a question, well, is mobilization going to be $500,000 this year and $500,000 next year, or is it going to be $500,000 to do the whole project? So but that's a number that is not a scope reduction. Scope reduction is a scope reduction. Well, you're going to build a 5,000 square foot house and you can't afford it, then you build a 4,000 square foot house. That's the bottom line on that. And value engineering is one of those things you can go down and at the end of the day, did we add any value, or did we save any money, or did we?
Yeah, and that's a really good point. That's what we're working on as well. I think, quite honestly, when we came into the project, we had some assumptions, and honestly, we didn't know what the bottom line of post was. So we've been shooting in the dark a little bit, now we know. And we're gonna work the budget out accordingly, so,
Go to that,
happy to chat more about it, but I think that we'll be bringing back more detailed information in the future.
Okay, I just,
Yeah, it'd be good to understand, like, at a more granular level, why it costs that much.
Certainly.
But I think too, I was also trying to, you know, when I put this together, it just seems so obvious as what we've been doing all along. I mean, you got 3 million coming in, that's all you should be spending. And you see that we're gonna be spending 3.5. Well, you're spending more than 3.5 because you got that final year of the Albany Park COP. But how I see the money is at the end of the year, we should have like $3 million in that restricted fund. And I think it's actually gonna be a little higher than that. But, so we have 3 million we're starting the year with, we got 3 million coming in, got 3.5 going out, we should end with 2.5. So here's the thing. Whatever, if we want to do Albany Park, we want to do DeRock's Park, we want to do Cliffs Hillside, we want to do something for Salt River, whatever those are, then have that be, you know, you're going to be presented a resolution for the work anyway to be done. But when you do one, you're really taking it from the bank, right? And if the Confluence Park, whatever that number works out to be, I don't know. I'm not in an informed position to tell you whether it should be 1, 2, 1, 6, or 8. I don't know what the number is. But at some point, you guys are gonna have to just keep track of that number. And I even think this could be something that I just include simply in the quarterly reports, because I think, Rick, you know, you've mentioned just keeping up with the running tab of how much we've got. And you got 2.5. It's not like you can't do them. You do them, you just take it from reserves. And you wouldn't want to deplete the reserves. You wouldn't want
So
to.
Doug, would you bring back a budget amendment at that time?
Yeah, I would.
In a supplemental
I would.
appropriation? Okay.
I would. Because Gloria wasn't wild about budgeting things without having hard costs.
Well, it's impossible to have hard costs for everything
Well-
at the time of budgeting.
Well,
so.
yeah, I mean, we can have a directional number, you can have something more than what we have is, I mean, we had some guesstimates of what numbers would be.
Kind of what,
So if you have a guesstimate,
yeah.
you almost have a pre-approved overage,
Yeah.
you know, because you're not. So I would propose that being the solution, what we do. So that's what I'm saying, and that's what I'm doing, and this is what's being presented. And if you go back just to the all funds summary, just to kind of bring this to a close.
Maybe.
Uh-oh. Yeah, you got it, there you go, here we go.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, here we go. I mean, by doing what we've done, and what I'm proposing now, sorry, just a little technical difficulty here, is that we originally proposed the general fund being upside down, but we're actually in the black by 18,000. The restricted fund is upside down by just a shy under 1.8. But remember, what we're doing is we're taking 2.2 million out of the restricted funds to buy the Midland property. So we're really not spending $1.8 million on like payroll or interest expense. We're actually buying something of an asset. Say the same thing for the capital construction fund. Yes, we're spending down our reserves, but that 2.4 is buying 2 duplexes, or two homes. You'll see the water fund, I said I would mention that. The water fund, we have this is going to be, we're going to be funding our meter replacement. So these are assets we're buying, so we're not, it's not like it's dead money, it's an expense, it's a capital item. And then even in the Conservation Trust Fund, this is the money associated with cemetery project, getting the irrigation ready to go. So really, we're showing a use of funds here of 4.4 million. And a lot of it, I'd say all of it, is related to capital assets we're buying. So I believe at the end of the day, we have a structurally balanced budget. We have recurring revenue equaling our recurring expenses. And then if you want to go just to the cover sheet of this in your memo, in your packet, just showing the differences by domain. This is the 140,000 rut row I had on the CDOT revenue. Our operating expenses are lower. We have small difference in capital or in the general fund, but this is the money we combed out of the post to make this work. So originally, we showed a use of funds of 6 million, expenditures in excess of revenue by 6 million. We're now at 4.4, the difference is a 1.5 is the differences I'm proposing. So that's the short version, if there is such a thing.
Well, it's a $3.5 million conversation, I think I heard.
Excuse me?
I think we heard a $3.5 million conversation or somewhere in that neighborhood between what you just combed out here and what you combed out from the previous presentation.
Thereabouts.
Yeah, so it's worth the discussion, I think.
Well, it's a positive adjustment.
Yeah.
Not to delay this anymore, but on the end of the construction fund, that 2.5 million, is that basically green?
Well,
Leftover?
it could be. It could be. I mean, I think there's still some money in there that could be considered affordable housing.
Okay.
But you know, I think there was, I wasn't here when it was done, but there was 8 million was the bond offering that was considered taxable. And I believe that council decided, and if it was informally or resolution or whatever it was, 25% it was green and 75% was affordable housing. So 2 million was tagged as green, 6 million was tagged as affordable housing, and we kind of ran with two silos. And of that 6 million, the only thing that was done was buying those lots for like $880. Now we've got, I don't know, $4 million, four and a half, in actually construction of the duplexes. We had a nice green project going with the installation of the roofs. That was about $1 million, I don't know, $1.6 million or so, but we had a DOLA grant against that. We also should be getting a $400,000 refund from the IRS.
And that would have to go back into the capital construction fund?
That would go back in the capital construction fund. And then we've had interest over the years. We've got, interest accumulating in those funds. So I don't know. Again, I just don't, maybe discussion for another time, whether that 2 and 6 is actually memorialized some way that we have to maintain that ratio, or if it was just something that we discussed. I'll talk to Jeff about it. So the answer is it could be green, could be affordable housing. It's probably some of both.
Yeah, but there's some capital to use as the town.
Right, and Dieter asked whether some of that green money could be used for the water meters, because of conservation of water.
Yeah.
So,
Fire
I mean, there's some discussions there we could be having. That's it?
That's it. This is a public hearing. I'll open it for public comment at
Is it a public hearing?
9:23, yeah.
Yep.
Anyone in the public want to make a comment? Come on, Gloria, we're waiting. I'll close public comment at 9:24.
She just logged in.
She's gonna be here in a week, right?
Power went out. This happens all the time.
Right.
It's on the attendees side.
Yeah, she's on the other side. Just raise your hand, Gloria. We want to know you're there.
Hey!
Challenge
accepted.
Second.
Thank you.
Oh, it's been moved and seconded. Pam, please call the roll.
Yes, let's begin with Hannah Berman,
Yes.
Dieter Schindler,
Yes.
Angela Anderson,
Yes.
Rick Stevens,
Yes.
Angel Dupré-Bouchard,
Yes.
and Ryan Slack.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, on to 7F, resolution number 58, series of 2025, resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, appropriating sums of money to the various funds and spending agencies in the amounts and the purposes set forth below for the Town of Basalt, Colorado for the 2026 budget year.
All right, so this is relatively straightforward. Just approved the budget, so now we're just appropriating the funds. So you'll see there in the appropriation. Do you have that called up or no? Oh, here we go. Oh, here we go. Look at you, Jenny. Isn't she great?
She is.
I had a boss one time she said, hire somebody who can do your job so you don't have to.
Right.
So fortunately, I didn't have to hire Jenny. She was already here. She can do my job.
You guys are doing awesome.
All right.
catch him on the fly when he tells me stuff to do stuff on the
Right,
fly.
so these are just our operating expenses, capital debt, this is general fund, this is just off our all-fund summary. And then on page 2, is our HOA fund, we didn't talk much about this, but this simply is our Riverside apartments across the street from Midland. We talked about the restricted funds, operating debt, capital service, our bond fund being our debt service for our taxable and tax-exempt bonds. So our water fund, so our enterprise fund, and then we have our capital construction fund, which is our bond money, and then our conservation trust fund is just simply the, the rake off of the lottery tickets comes in. We're just using that for our maintaining our parks conservation efforts. So we just have to do this as a formality, as our appropriation, and so this is by resolution. So I would recommend, if there's any questions, I could go through those.
If there are no questions, I will entertain a motion.
I move that the town council adopt resolution number 58, series of 2025.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Pam, please call the roll.
Happily, let us begin with Ryan Slack.
Yes.
Dieter Schindler. Yes. Anna Berman.
Yes.
Angela Anderson.
Yes.
Rick Stevens.
Yep.
Angel Dupree-Bouchard.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Meeting adjourned. Appreciate working with everyone.
Usually that's the fire department.
Very bad at keeping time.
No, you actually are usually pretty good.
Yeah.